State Department for Energy, J, State Department for Petroleum, K, State Department for Water and Sanitation, L, State Department for Irrigation, M, Judicial Service Commission, N, Ministry of Defense, O, Consolidated Fund Services, Pension and Gratuities, the National Treasury, P, Office of the Deputy President, Q, Commission on Administrative Justice, R, Kenya-Italy Debt for Development Program, State Department for Water and Sanitation, S, Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund, T, Revenue Statements, U, Petroleum Training Levy Fund, and V, National Police Service. Thank you, and I lay, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wako. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 27th of February, 2024. The second report on the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on the inquiry into the maize flour subsidy program for the financial year 2022-2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Mutunga. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice to the following motion that this House adopts the second report of the Departmental Committee on the Agriculture and Livestock on the inquiry into the maize flour subsidy program for the financial year 2022-2023, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 27th of February, 2024. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Kapchai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that aware that Article 57 of the Constitution obligates the state to take measures to secure the rights of older persons to live in dignity and receive reasonable care and assistance from the state, noting that to actualize the provisions of Article 57 of the Constitution, the government rolled out the Inua Jamii Cash Transfer Program in 2015 in order to provide regular and predictable cash transfers to older persons aged 70 years and above who are not receiving civil service pensions. Appreciating the success that the program has recorded in the alleviating poverty and suffering among older persons of the society since its inception, noting the government's commitment to progressively net about 2.5 million more vulnerable and underprivileged members of the society to the program in the next 3 years, concerned that the eligibility for enrollment of older persons, older members of the society to the Inua Jamii program is pegged at attainment of the age of 70 years, noting that Article 260 of the Constitution defines an older member of society as one who has attained the age of 60 years, concerned that restricting eligibility for enrollment to the Inua Jamii program to attainment of 70 years is discriminatory to the older persons of society and negates the principles of the Constitution that article entitles them to receive reasonable care and assistance from the state. Now, therefore, this House urges the national government through the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection to revise the eligibility age for enrollment of older persons of society to the Inua Jamii program from 70 years to 60 years in line with Article 260 of the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairperson, Public Investments Committee on Commercial Affairs and Energy. Where is the chairperson? Honorable Wako?
I'm on this side.
Posing.
You know, PIC sits this side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That this House adopts the report of the Public Investments Committee on Commercial Affairs and Energy on its examination of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of selected state corporations laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 6 December 2023. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Posing. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. I was just agonizing, and perhaps this is the right time for me to raise this issue. Honorable Speaker, you know that under our Constitution,
what issue are you raising?
it's the issue of the BPS.
The
The issue of the budget policy statement is very relevant, Honorable Speaker. And perhaps you could give guidance as we proceed with
Can I finish with the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security first?
Most obliged.
Chairperson, Tongoyo.
Yes, sir. Speaker.
Jerry Maina, that is your statement being responded to. Better pay attention.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad that the honorable member is in the House. Honorable Speaker, I want to respond as follows. Honorable Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Kirinyaga County, Honorable Jerry Maina, has requested for a statement regarding the deaths that occurred in her county after consumption of illicit brews. Honorable Member particularly sought to be informed, 1, the status of investigation into the death, whether the owners of the outlet from where the brew was obtained have been apprehended and prosecuted, measures taken by the government to ensure strict compliance with the Alcoholic Drink Control Act 2010 and effective implementation of alcohol policy in region mostly affected by consumption of illicit brews. I want to state that as follows. Honorable Speaker, on 6 February 2024, a total of 17 persons lost their lives after consumption of illicit brews in Kangai Village, Mwea West Sub-County, Kirinyaga County. 15 of the people who lost their lives took the illicit brew at California Bar, while the other 2 drank at Coconut Bar. Investigations were commenced immediately, which indicated that the illicit brew was an exhibit at Kiamashira Police Station exhibit store, but it was stolen by the police officers and sold to the main suspect, Mr. John Murithi Karaya, before the incident. The survivors of the illicit brew, the 13 in number, were traced, their statement recorded, and were issued with the P3 forms. Mr. Speaker, a total of 8 suspects, including the 4 police officers who were accused of stealing the illicit brew exhibit, has been arrested in connection with the illicit brew deaths, and the suspects were as follows. 1, Kennedy Mugambi, number 235553. 2, PC Francis Muteya, number 113662. PC Brian Karaoke, number 124739. PC Alan Kayo, number 125028. And Anthony Mudea, John Murithi Karaya, Lydia Wanjiro Mbokote, Jane Wamboi Muruakuki. Mr. Speaker, detectives are in pursuit of other suspects who are at large. All 8 suspects were produced before the court on miscellaneous application, and the court issued orders to detain them in different police stations within the county, with the mention of case being 7th March. at Baricho Law Court. The completion of the cases filed in almost complete, and the same will be forwarded to DPP for perusal and advice. The owners of the outlet from where the brew was obtained has been apprehended and prosecuted. Honorable Speaker, the following 3 owners of the California outlet has been arrested and are being held at Sagana and Kiamashira Police Station: John Murithi Karaya, Lydia Wanjiro Mbogothe, Jane Wanjiro Muriauki. However, the owner of the coconut bar is still at large, and efforts have been intensified to arrest him together with other suspects. Number 2, measures taken by the government as to ensure strict compliance with the Alcoholic Drink Act Control 2010 and effective implementation of alcohol policies in region mostly affected by the illicit brew. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, in collaboration with the NECADA and other key stakeholders, has taken the following measures, among others, to ensure strict compliance with the Alcoholic Drink Control Act and effective implementation of the alcoholic policies in the country. Sensitization and an awareness program targeting members of the public on dangers of alcoholic consumption and the importance of purchasing certified alcoholic drinks. Such forums include local barasas, social meetings, school programs, and sporting activities. Continued surveillance, seizure, and destruction of illicit brews by the national government administration officers. Conducting regular rapid response initiative targeting illicit and counterfeit alcohol. The multi-agency enforcement operation to check on compliance, to lay out regulation and crack down, to close down alcoholic outlet near institution of learning. Sensitization program targeting entertainers through the Bar Owners Association. Liaison with the county government to ensure that only alcoholic drinks that are sold in the premises that they are licensed. The intelligence and information gathering. NECADA developed a national guideline for prevention and management of alcohol and drug abuse in basic learning institutions. The guidelines to guide the teachers and parents on incident management to assist in identification of those who are using drugs, in possession of drugs, and management of the students. All bars, the guidelines also target support staff who have been named in several locations to their supplier on their role in prevention of substance use and maintaining drug-free environment. All bars within Kirinyaga County were closed, and multi-agency team comprising of the security committees at both county and sub-county level, county government official, NECADA, KEBS, KRA, and Anti-Counterfeit Authority deployed to ensure compliance. The multi-agency inspected and vetted all liquor outlets. Those who have complied with the Alcoholic Drunk Act has been allowed to operate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Signed by Kithuri Kindiki, Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration.
Jerry?
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Can I add something?
Go ahead. Honorable Kiborek and
that is the Minister's response to the question of Kirinyaga, and I want again to reiterate, Mr. Speaker, that it was a very painful death. And Mr. Speaker, it has not just happened even to Kirinyaga, it's still happening. In my own county, actually, as early as late as yesterday, I got a report of about 2 deaths that are also died because of consumption of illicit brews. And Mr. Speaker, I think these issues and many others should really be able to trigger conversation. We appreciate the effort being taken by the Deputy President currently on matters regarding the illicit brews and drug and substance abuse. And Mr. Speaker, we have got sufficient laws to help the country able to curb the menace. But I think, Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier when this came up, we had a few gaps in the law that I think as a house we should be able to discuss and see how we can cure. Like, Mr. Speaker, the issue of importation and export of illicit brews and all these, the NECADA, who is a critical player, is not admitted in the portal. And we think if they are admitted and become the first approver, they can able to trace the ethanol, the volumes, and all the ethanols that are in the country. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the counties, the Constitution 2010, Schedule 4, moved the function of licensing to the counties, and NACADA has got no much role. We were saying, Mr. Speaker, if we can able to harmonize and able to allow the NACADA to be a secretary to the district licensing district committee, it can able to ensure that some funds were ring-fenced and be made available to sensitize the public on the effect of the same. Mr. Speaker, there is a big problem. We have been actually in conversation with the NACADA, and they say majority of this ethanol come across the border, Tanzania and Uganda. And because they say the tariffs are not standardized, Mr. Speaker. In Tanzania, there is no tax, there is no actually excess duty, it is zero. In Uganda across, it's half. So it makes it easier for the dealers of this ethanol to bring them in the country. I think it's a conversation that we should be discussing, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that there is standard tariffs across the East African bloc so that we can able to control the influx of ethanol in the country. Mr. Speaker, as I complete, I say the issue of control of ethanol and substance abuse should be a concerted effort of all of us and actually the majority stakeholders. There is something, Mr. Speaker, that the cabs, there were the NACADA people at some point, we had a conversation, and I was saying, normally when ethanol is exported into the country, it comes as a commercial for production of spirits, the sanitizers and the rest. But the rogue suppliers divert it for human consumption. Maybe we should also bring conversation whether this can be denatured so that it becomes so bitter, it cannot be used for consumption. Mr. Speaker, that is the response, and I wanted also to add the same. And I'm really sorry to our member of parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jerry, order, honorable members. Order, the conversations are too loud. Jerry.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to thank the chair of the departmental committee for the very detailed response in regard to the deaths that happened in Kenyatta County. Honorable Speaker, perhaps as a follow-up, I would like to know, there were more than 1,200 crates that went missing, and I would want to know whether they have been located or what is the status of the same. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to know how many bars, because I have seen that Roman 9 has indicated that there was a vetting process that was done in conjunction with the county government and other national agencies, allowing for the operation of bars. How many have been allowed to operate after the vetting process? Honorable Speaker, I want to commend the honorable member for raising the issue of...
Chairman, I hope you are listening to the questions being raised. Yes.
I am actually commending him.
Yes.
I want to commend him for raising the issue of introducing the chemical that is mixed with ethanol without changing its industrial component and use of the same. And I believe that is an issue that the committee should take up so that we can also legislate at the national level to ensure that we protect and contain the importation of ethanol and also second generation alcohol. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Kishugu. Can you give the member for Kishugu the mic? Oh. There you are.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me also comment on this matter and appreciate the response by the chair, and also say that though Kirinyaga was hit this time, this is a national problem. And I think one of the areas that should be followed to the letter is on the regulation of the ethanol or methanol, so that it can be traced from the source, so that whoever is found in the country holding an illegal product, then very serious and stern action can be taken. Let me also take this opportunity, though we've also been condoling with the families, to say that us as the registrators from the county, we are ready to support His Excellency the Deputy President in wiping out all the illicit brews from our county, and to make our county a working county going forward. Mr. Speaker, thank you, and I really support every other effort that is made towards eradicating illicit brew, not only in Kirinyaga, but in the entire country as a legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. Wandai.
Yes, thank you once again, Honorable Speaker.
On the same issue, let me give to Oundo first. I know yours is different.
Just 2 minutes.
Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Once again, let me join my colleagues from Kirinyaga to condole the families who lost their life. And I really want to direct my comments to the chair of the committee. It would emerge, Honorable Speaker, there could be no protocol or regulations or rules on how to handle exhibits. The members who died because they consumed probably expired exhibits. Many places in this country, the police says alcohol, be it illicit, be it illegally imported, be it whichever nature. But again, it ends up the same police officers sell that exhibit plus other exhibits, and they have found their way into the market, causing untold harm to the people of Kenya. I want to encourage the committee to seriously have a thorough discussion with the police and the relevant security organs to draw up protocols on how to handle exhibits. For how long should we keep exhibits? Who has got access to the key or the store of the exhibits? With this way, we'll be able to try to stem this harmful consumption of these harmful products. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, the Honorable Speaker, actually my issue is clearly straightforward. I wanted to seek some guidance from you, especially taking into consideration the very clear provisions of our Constitution. Honorable Speaker, this House has got a central role in the budget-making process, a role that is not ceremonial. The framers of the Constitution, and indeed Kenyans generally, when they adopted the Constitution, had not envisaged a situation where the National Assembly of the Republic of Kenya would turn out to be a mere rubber stamp in the budget-making process. And I want to take you to the Article 95, Subarticle 4, A and B of the Constitution. The National Assembly determines the allocation of national revenue between the levels of government, and so on and so forth. But at B, the National Assembly appropriates funds for expenditure by the national government and other national state organs. Honorable Speaker, as we speak, the budget policy statement, which was tabled in this House last week, is undergoing an examination process. But Honorable Speaker, what is coming out, and this is now becoming a trend which has to be nipped in the bud if the authority of this House is to be restored, that committees of Parliament, and especially departmental committees, are being turned into mere bystanders, if not conveyor belts, of the wishes of the executive. As a matter of fact, what the Constitution requires, and I've spoken, Honorable Speaker, to a number of chairs, and they are very, very disparate. I must say that. I won't name them. They are extremely helpless. What the Constitution envisages is that the national government would simply bring proposals proposals, even if there was some selling, global selling from the National Treasury, that has also to be in consultation with the Parliament. But those proposals are supposed to be subjected to the departmental committees, which then would advise the Budget and Appropriations Committee. It was never envisaged that the executive would come with fixed mind and dictate to departmental committees, to the Budget and Appropriations Committee, on the very crucial matter of budget making process. And therefore, I want to plead with my sister Wako to just be patient. Just be patient, so it doesn't interfere with my thought process. Honorable Speaker, I'm raising this thing early in the day so that you can provide clearer guidance in line with the Constitution and the relevant statutes, especially the Public Finance Management Act, Honorable Speaker, that as we speak, there are ministries that have already declared that monies allocated to their ministries would have to be in this particular manner, that these monies will have to go to these specific functions or roles or purposes that Parliament would only have to rubber stamp. So I want you to, Honorable Speaker, without really belaboring the point, and I know you can actually give guidance on this matter, so that everybody else gets to understand that this House does not have a mere ceremonial role or duty in the budget making process. It is actually the House with the powers, the primary powers to make the budget. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Majority side. I want a government respondent to that. Naomi Wako, are you turning this House into a rubber stamp?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's unfortunate that the minority leader is saying that this great House, this Honorable August House, has been turned to a rubber stamp, which is very unfortunate, and him included, because we passed the finance bill last year, and he's part of the people who passed the bill. It is this House that passed the bill, and today he's accusing members of Parliament to have become rubber stamp. That is very unfortunate. That is not our role. Our role is to do our work, legislate, and represent our people in the best possible way. And again, Honorable Speaker, he has said that the government is dictating. That is not the role of our government. Our government is there to guide the nation. Our government is there to bring development. Our government is there as executive, and it is not there to dictate. And I think our minority leader has not passed the right message to the people. Thank you.
Yes, Milemba. Order, Kajwang, you can't conduct yourself.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The matter raised by the leader of minority is a very serious matter. And me, as a titular follower of the issues that concern budget making and legislation, I would be quick to say that that should never happen if it is happening. Because I'm aware that a number of committees have been meeting, including one which I belong, which is the Debt Committee, and we have been scrutinizing lots of matters concerning budget. I just want to believe that also other committees, and more so, the Budget Committee is doing the same and thoroughly so, without having any direction from any particular field, whether it's a minister or a member of the executive, because basically, like he did quote correctly, it is the mandate of the House to make the budget and even to appropriate money to various areas and ministries. And therefore, it calls upon us who are in leadership, the chairman, if he almost sounded like a whistleblower. So I don't know, Honorable Speaker, if he has more information, for instance, to those particular committees that are being intimidated or being asked to actually pass the budget that has been made by other authorities. And if he had such information, then he should tell us more, so that we are either as Parliament able to protect, speak to those chairmen, and so on and so forth. So I also was unable to take his matter with great seriousness, because he needed to be more vivid to indicate that this is what's happening here and here. Otherwise, ordinarily, I would want to stand with what he said, that it is this House to appropriate these monies. But Honorable Speaker, as I finish, he needs to give more information if we have such a cases happening, which committees, so that then we can intervene. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Morogara.
Thank you. I apologize that I don't have my card. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, I've listened to the concern raised by the leader of minority, and to a great extent, it is not correct. Because, number one, we know very well that the budget policy statement emanates from the executive. The reason why it emanates from the executive is for the executive to state how much money is available so that Parliament is able to appropriate. Number two, ceilings have to be given because, again, the policy surrounding appropriation of money is by the executive. That is why ceilings are recommended. Once this comes to the House, the purpose of the House and the committees is to look at what has been proposed, and this is why we also do stakeholder engagement, the MDAs, the agencies. They come to us to say, this is the ceiling that has been recommended, but you as a House, you have actually to look at what else we need so that you make appropriate recommendations to the House. For the case of Justice and Legal Affairs, we have about 12 MDAs who come to us. We know we have the policy statement, we have the ceilings, but we are also able to listen. And today we were signing a report whereby we were recommending to Budget and Appropriations that the ceilings given are not sufficient for those MDAs. Where we have to make an alteration, we are making those alterations. But we have not been coerced. We have not been forced by anyone to write these reports in any particular form. Therefore, what he says is not correct unless there are other committees where there has been any such recommendation. So I totally disagree with the statement.
Honorable members, order. There's no debate on this. The Honorable Member for Gunja, the distinguished minority leader, has raised some very serious allegations without an iota of evidence. I would have expected the distinguished member to say, chairman of this and this committee has come and protested of being intimidated. On this and this day, a member of the executive came to railroad the committee to do this and that. No evidence whatsoever. So what the honorable member has said is just in keeping with his role as an opposition leader. He has every right to raise any manner of issues that he wants to keep the House busy. But it is not a matter worth debating. I can assure you, Honorable Wandai, that as long as I'm your Speaker, this House cannot and will not be turned into a rubber stamp. And I want to encourage you that in the event you see any such traits, attempts, or even intentions to turn the House into a rubber stamp, the office of your Speaker is open to you. And chairman of committees, if any one of you is intimidated, again, the Speaker is here to protect you. And the law and the Constitution also protects you in the discharge of your duties and responsibilities. So let the matter rest there. The Honorable Wandai has brought absolutely no matter to continue to discuss. Next order. Before we call the next order, honorable members, allow me to recognize a delegation of staff from the United Republic of Tanzania seated in the Speaker's Gallery. The delegation comprises of 2 members of staff drawn from the Legal Services Division of the National Assembly of Tanzania. They are welcome to observe the proceedings of the National Assembly of Kenya, and on my behalf and your behalf, we welcome them to the House of Parliament. Next.
Order number 8, motion, ratification of the agreement on the establishment of the International Vaccines Institute. Question to be put.
Honorable members, I'll now put the question at order number 8, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Health on its consideration of the agreement on the establishment of the International Vaccine Institute, IVI, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 5th December 2023, and pursuant to the provision of Section 8.4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012, approves the ratification of the agreement on the establishment of the International Vaccine Initiative, IVI. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the national government, ministries, departments and agencies for the financial year 2020-2021. Resumption of debate.
Who was on the floor? Okay. There was nobody on the floor, and I'm told there is an amendment which I approved to be moved by the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse. Thereafter, and you know, the amendment will have to be debated and voted on. If it is procedural and agreed by the committee, we can, after moving and seconding, we can put the proposal and put the question so that we go to the main report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are moving an amendment of our report that was tabled before this House on the Thursday, 30th of November 2023. And if you allow, before I move the amendment, just to appraise members of this House, is that the report that we tabled indicated that the total, a figure that after scrutiny we realized that it was erroneous in terms of the total shareable revenue. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, public accounts reports serve not only accountability purposes, but they are also under Article 2 or 3 of the Constitution, sub Article 3, the basis on which the national and county governments share revenue at the start of the financial year for budgeting purposes. For clarity, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Mutuse.
Yes, just to read.
You are debating.
No, I just wanted to appraise members so that I read.
You don't have to move the amendment.
Thank you. With the guidance of the Speaker, I now read. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Chairman, the Honorable Badi, notice is given that the Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee wishes to move the following amendment to the report of the Public Accounts Committee on the examination of the Auditor General's report on the accounts of the financial year 2020-2021 by deleting paragraph 30 under the general observations and recommendations on page 20 of the report and substituting therefore with the following. Statement on audited accounts of revenue for the period ending 30th June 2021. During the 2020-2021 financial year, total revenue recorded under various revenue statements as received by the national government amounted to Kenya shillings 1,713,642,981,513 shillings, representing a decrease of Kenya shillings 17,349,702 12 and 351 shillings, or about 1% when compared to actual collections of 1,730,992,693,894 Kenya shillings realized in the 2019-2020 financial year, as tabulated in the table that is part of this motion, and whose source is the Kenya National Audit Office. Mr. Speaker, the total revenue of Kenya shillings 1,700,642,981 and 513 shillings for the year 2020-2021 financial year, comprised of Kenya shillings 1,570,562,945,014 shillings as shareable revenue, Kenya shillings 56,238,304,456 shillings as receipts from government investments and public enterprises, and Kenya shillings 86,841,732,043 shillings relating to development revenue. However, the total shareable revenue of Kenya shillings 1,570,562,945,014 shillings reported in the 2020-2021 financial year differs by Kenya shillings 7,472,473,978 shillings, with the revenue receipts of Kenya shillings 1,578,035,418,902 shillings in the preceding financial year of 2019-2020. Mr. Speaker, therefore, the committee recommends that the total national collected revenue amounted to Kenya shillings 1,562,545,014 shillings, and which forms the basis of sharing of revenue between the national and county governments as contemplated in Article 203, Sub-Article 3 of the Constitution. Madam Speaker, I move, and I request the Honorable Aundo to second.
Who is your seconder? Okay, there you are. Honorable Member for Funyula.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the amendment, the motion as presented on the floor of the House by my colleague, Honorable Mutuse. And I want to draw the attention to the people of Kenya that Article 2033, it indicates clearly that the shareable revenue will be based on the recent approved by national accounts by the National Assembly. So it's critically important that once this motion is passed and the report is adopted, the next line of sharing will be based on these audited accounts. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the amendment that the motion be amended by deleting paragraph 30 under the general observations and recommendations on page 20 of the report and substituting it as moved by the Honorable Mutuse. Yes, Honorable Badi.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thought maybe I would take a minute just to make it simpler. I know my colleague, Honorable Mutuse, who is a renowned lawyer in this country, has done justice to this amendment, and Honorable Aundo, who is also my diligent member of the committee. But allow me just to maybe explain to members in a few words what this amendment seeks to do. Madam Speaker, you know we are required by the Constitution
to every year divide revenue between national and county governments. And that should be based on ordinary revenue collected, audited and approved. So the last audited and approved accounts are the ones that is used. So that is why we are passing this motion to make that revenue available. Now, what is it that was wrong in the report which we are trying to correct? Madam Speaker, and this is something that we engaged our minds to, we realize that almost all the years we have been making this mistake. So the mistake is this, that under non-tax revenues, we have been double accounting for the same amount, that we have been including the same amount twice in our reports, and we were almost doing the same mistake. So what is this? I will explain. Loan, you know, sometimes state corporations take loans, and when they take loans from the government. The government gives state corporations loans. They repay back to the national government that loan together with interest. When that money is received, it's usually paid to an entity which is called Government Investment and Public Enterprises. If you like, you can call it GPE. Now, once that money is received by Government Investment and Public Enterprises, it is recorded as income or revenue. Then when that money is transferred in full to the exchequer, it is again recorded as income. So the same amount is recorded as income when it is received by this Government Investment and Public Enterprises, and when they transfer the money to the exchequer, it is again recorded. So what we are doing with this amendment, Madam Speaker, is very simple. We are removing this double entry so that we don't inflate government ordinary revenue. It is to the tune of 56 billion, so that we have the correct amount which is received by government to be used as the amount for sharing our revenue vertically between the national and the county government. So that is the essence of this amendment, Madam Speaker. I hope I have been a little clearer to the members. Thank you, and I support.
Honorable members, before we continue with the contributions, allow me to recognize seated in the public gallery, Bishop Alexander Muge Girls School from KWANZA constituency in Trans Nzoia County. The Honorable Member for KWANZA, Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, I'll allow you to contribute to this debate as you welcome the school from your constituency.
Madam Speaker, asante sana. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I take this opportunity to welcome the school, which is in my constituency. And as you can see, those who have come, please welcome to the sitting. This is where we are. This is where we make rules. And I hope and pray that you will also admire. And one of you may be a member of parliament in the future. So I want to, on the behalf of the Speaker, on the behalf of the members of parliament, to welcome you to this sitting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Navakolo, Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe. Card is still there. Okay. Okay. The Honorable Member for Saboti, Caleb Luyai. He seconded, okay. If you've spoken, you can pull out your card. The Honorable Adan Haji, Member for Mandera East. He's pulled out his card. Okay, it seems that on this particular proposed amendment, maybe I can just put the question. Honorable members, I now put the question that the amendment I now put the the question. That the motion be amended by deleting paragraph 30 under the general observations and recommendations on page 20 of the report and substituting it as moved by the Honorable Mutuse. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable members, we can proceed now to debate the motion as amended. We can resume debate of the motion as amended. The Honorable Victor Koech of Chebalungu constituency.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Having looked around and seeing the mood of this House under our standing order number 95, I hereby would request that the mover be called to reply.
Thank you. Where is the mover may reply?
Is it allowed? Has it been allowed?
Who is the mover? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in replying, I don't want to say much because actually when I was moving my motion, I took a lot of time. I actually took close to 1 hour moving this motion, and I want to just take this opportunity to thank members of this House who have contributed to this motion, even those who didn't have opportunity to contribute, that your contributions are highly appreciated. And I listened, I sat here through that evening, that was Thursday evening. A number of members expressed their displeasure with budgetary process in this country and the way we misuse budgets. And I think it is important that this House takes note of that, because we are budget-making institution. We shouldn't be crying, we shouldn't be complaining, because we are complaining to ourselves. Something else that I wanted to also talk about is regarding one of the members talked about signing of contracts. Signing of contracts, the commercial contracts, the State Department is involved. Financial contracts is exclusively done by Treasury. But Madam Speaker, you'll agree with me that we have had challenges with the way contracts are executed in this country, where we even go ahead to put into the contracts some provisions which make this country lose a lot of money, where you put that contractors, if there is delay in payment, they will be paid 3% above central bank rates. That is completely unrealistic. Sometimes we even sign contracts for projects and commit government, yet we have not even acquired land. So this committee, Public Accounts Committee, Madam Speaker, has already recommended that Office of the Attorney General, which is the legal government advisor, should be involved in execution of, in signing of contracts. There is no reason why financial contracts are only signed with the involvement of Treasury, yet we have a full department, full legal department, headed by Attorney General, State Council, and all lawyers and legal staff that we have. Finally, Madam Speaker, we have already asked, Madam Speaker, that we strengthen the Office of the Auditor General. That is something that I want to repeat because members spoke to it. If we want prudent financial management and usage of taxpayers' money in this country in a way that is going to ensure value for money, efficiency and effectiveness, then we must, at the minimum, enhance not just the budget of the control office of the Auditor General, but even make sure that we automate that office so that we get real-time audit reports. Madam Speaker, I said finally, but very finally, one of us actually spoke to the idea that, we brought an idea that he expected more scandals to be unearthed. You know, Madam Speaker, I think members we need to appreciate that Public Accounts Committee does not operate in a vacuum. We actually examine accounts as presented to us by the Auditor General. So if the Auditor General has not brought those so-called earth-shaking scandals, we can't manufacture them. But I would tell you, if you read this report keenly, you will see that there are a lot of financial irregularities, which many of them we have recommended that Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission must investigate. What is important from our perspective as Public Accounts Committee is not to chase and look for thieves. We are looking at the system and reviewing it so that we deter theft going forward. That is actually the main responsibility of an oversight committee, not to look for where people have stolen money, not to be vindictive. That is not our role. But if we find people have stolen money, then we are objective and we must make sure that we recommend their prosecution. And we have done so in our report. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to reply.
Honorable Malema, what is it?
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I rise on standing order number 53, subsection 3, that the putting of the question on this matter be deferred until a later date.
All right, I think that's acceptable. Let's move to the next order. Thank you, Honorable Mbaka.
Order number 10, motion, reports of the Auditor General on 23 non-compliant state corporations. Resumption of debate.
I can be told from the records that Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe was moving, and you have a balance of 40 minutes. 20 minutes? 40 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, indeed it's true. It was mentioned and pronounced by the then Speaker that I had 40 minutes, which I would want to consume. And just to bring to speed my colleagues who could not have been there at that time, that this report of Public Investments Committee is talking about 23 state corporations, Madam Speaker, who are duly incorporated, but for a reason or so, they have failed to comply within the provisions of the governance of the statutes that are laid before the country. Honorable Speaker, allow me to proceed, especially having gone through the generalities of the observations that we did as a committee. Straight away, just remind my colleagues of a few issues that we were looking at when it came to these issues of 23. There were various issues that were noted. One of the issues being lack of autonomy in budgeting, appropriation, and budgetary. I had already highlighted it, but for the interest of bringing up to speed, my colleagues, I just want to emphasize on that. The other issue that contributed to this issue, the 23 non-compliant state corporations, was lack of accountability of public funds and failure to prepare and submit financial statements to the Auditor General. Madam Speaker, these 23 state corporations enjoy the public resources, but they do not submit their books of accounts, neither do they prepare financial statements for audit, and neither are the statements audited, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other issue we observed is the 23 state corporations failed to prepare and submit statements for unspent money repaid into the National Exchequer account. Despite having received the resources, Madam Speaker, these organizations failed to submit statements for unspent amounts. So meaning they could just spend and let it go in that manner. The other issue which we noted as a committee is these 23 state corporations failed, the failure by the parent ministry to operationalize the state corporations. Madam Speaker, part of the 23 state corporations are not failing because of themselves, but because the parent ministries failed to recognize them and give them the life that they required. Madam Speaker,
Finally, second last, Madam Speaker, is what we observed was state corporations lacked substantive accounting officers. This is a substantive issue that every state corporation must have a substantive accounting officer, and the cabinet secretary in charge being the cabinet secretary at the time being in charge of finance. Madam Speaker, lastly, there was failure by the state corporations to keep financial and accounting records that comply with the Public Finance Management Act. We realize, Madam Speaker, despite the fact that some of these corporations kept their books of accounts, but they did not meet the threshold of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012. And finally, what we observed, Madam Speaker, was the weak governance, whereby we observed that some state corporations were operating without substantive board of directors, and accounting officers were the CEOs. It was also observed that in majority of the state corporations, the CEOs or managing directors, who could also be called at times registrars, were in acting capacity, or staff officers were being seconded from the various ministries. Madam Speaker, the other issue I would like to bring to the attention of the committee, from where I stopped, were now the recommendations. What did the committee recommend as way forward? Madam Speaker, the committee had various general and specific recommendations, and I would want to read through the general recommendations, then I take through the House the specific recommendations. That within the 3 months after tabling as a general observation and adoption of this report, the Cabinet Secretary and the Accounting Officer of the line ministries for the state corporations established by an Act of Parliament or legal notice, whichever, should continue to operate as directorates, within the said parent ministry or state department, should take the necessary steps to accord them the semi-autonomous depicted in the establishing statutes. The second one, Madam Speaker, was within 3 months after tabling and adoption of this report, the Attorney General and the Cabinet Secretary of the line ministries for the state corporations established by executive order, which continue to operate as directorates within the said parent ministries or state departments, should initiate the necessary legal steps of developing a legal framework to accord them the semi-autonomous depicted in the executive order. The third one, the state corporations that rely on national exchequer for financial support should be funded through grants rather than as budgetary line items. Further, upon tabling and adoption of this report, the state corporations that are not operationalized should be operationalized and granted the autonomy status. In addition, the Cabinet Secretary in charge and in consultation with the Attorney General should initiate the process of repealing the respective acts of Parliament or relevant statutes, establishing them where it is felt that the statutes have been overtaken by events and are no longer applicable, like in the case of Animal Technician Council. C, upon tabling and adoption of this report, state corporations that are managed by their sister corporations be granted their semi-autonomous status. D, within 3 months upon establishing and adoption of this report, the Cabinet Secretary in charge, in consultation with the Attorney General, should initiate the amendment process for the state corporations established to offer services that conflict or are similar to those of sister corporations established by the same act to be merged. Honorable Speaker, I want now to move the House to the specific observations for a few state corporations that came out very glaring. I begin with Mathari National Teaching and Referral Hospital. Madam Speaker, the Committee for Mathari National Teaching and Referral Hospital observed as follows: that despite being established as a body corporate with an envisaged financial and administrative autonomy by the legal notice number 165 of 2020 and State Corporations Act, the hospital still operates as a department in the Ministry of Health. Madam Speaker, the second observation which came out very clearly was that the CEO, despite being appointed, does not account for the appropriation in aid, in contravention of Section 68 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Section 16 of Legal Notice number 165 of 2020. Madam Speaker, among those two observations,
We also had the last one, which you observed that the principal secretary who appeared before the committee confirmed that on ceding the hospital to operate as a saga and confirmed allocating grants to the hospital in the current financial year. Therefore, Madam Speaker, the PS confirmed after appearing before us that he is going to implement the state corporation as it's established. Therefore, our recommendations, Madam Speaker, goes as follows. One, for the issue of Mathari National Teaching and Referral Hospital, that Parliament should reprimand the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Health, for failing to grant autonomy in the hospital's operations and financial independence. Madam Speaker, this lies on the observation that the hospital was receiving resources and was not being held to account. Part two, that Parliament should reprimand the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, for failure to appoint an accounting officer for the hospital in line with Article 226(1)(b) of the Constitution and Section 673 of the Public Finance Management Act. Madam Speaker, we go to the second corporation, which is the Clinical Officers Council, where the committee observed two issues. One, the Clinical Officers Council was established as a body corporate by the Clinical Officers Training, Registration and Licensing Act 2017 with an envisaged financial and administrative autonomy. Two, the accounting officer of the council failed to prepare financial statements and accounts of the monies received.
And yet they receive money from the exchequer, they consume public funds in terms of appropriation in aid, in air, and all other funds that belong to the public. There are also clear, weak governance structure, and they are not properly structured financially, administrative-wise, and therefore they lack basic structures that will ensure proper management of public resources and giving the public value for money. Madam Speaker, I can go on and on, but a number of them, like my chair has mentioned, Mathari, for example, a very long historical institution that is still under the management of the parent ministry, Ministry of Health, that they could not procure on themselves. They have to seek the authority of the PS of the ministry. That one, of course, has a bearing to the day-to-day operation of that very, very important institution. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to second and urge the House to support this very important report by the committee that sat, deliberated. We met each and every of these agencies. We met the parent ministries, and the recommendations, if followed, Madam Speaker, is going to make either some of these sagas operation properly, or in some cases, we suggest that some of them must be rendered useless and find a way of closing down to safeguard the public resources that are continuously being embezzled on a daily basis. Madam Speaker, I beg to second.
Thank you. Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Public Investments Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on 23 non-compliant state corporations laid on the table of this House on Wednesday, 23rd August 2023. Members may contribute. The Honorable Member for Nandi Hills, Honorable Bernard Kitur.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity to contribute on this report tabled in the House for PIC, for Agriculture and Social Services. I want to thank the Chair and the committee for the well-done report. I participated in the committee that did this report, and indeed, it was a great commitment, having observed the 23 government agencies regarding their operation their books of accounts. And as chair and the vice chair who was seconded, as rightly mentioned, we were able to observe several issues and the recommendations that were made that would help in the future how the public funds are being utilized by some of these institutions. And generally, one of the things we noted was the lack of autonomy in the budgeting, appropriation, and also generally the budgetary control. And we would notice that a couple of these state agencies do not have their own line budgets. They either depended on the ministry, or you would even find one agency is oversighting another agency, which then becomes a conduit sometimes of corruption. You would also notice that for the 23 agencies that we went through, about 16 of them were not able to explain how the 3.9 billion shillings appropriated to them, they were not able to account. And worse off, there are those that literally did not have any books of their accounts having been audited. Some of the recommendations that we've been able to make are so punitive that it should be able to have every government agency that has been appropriated public funds to be able to account for them. We also noted that there were several of these agencies as well that do not have the boards, or rather you would even find their chief executive officers have acted for a very long time in acting capacity that do not give them the complete autonomy to be able to run those agencies independently. And therefore, part of the recommendations that we've made is that some of them that don't have the boards must have the boards within 3 months. And those that have had their CEOs acting for a very long time with no apparent reason need to have those CEOs confirmed. We also noted as well that there are those accounting officers that have also been seconded from the main mother ministries to these organizations that are operating. So they don't have substantive officers that you could be able to task them, because most of those who were there were seconded officers. So generally, Speaker, it is our wish that this House adopts this report that has been prepared by this committee, because we took a lot of time and went in depth to look at every area that we can be able to assist these government sagas to be able to operate. And lastly, of course, I think it would be noteworthy to mention some of the agencies that are an act of parliament but they are non-existent, that such shouldn't be closed, some of which even came up through the executive orders, presidential executive orders, but they are non-existent. And sometimes you would find some of them even have appropriated funds that such, in our report, as you've said, must be closed down so that the public funds don't get wasted, or their existence only in paper, but they are not existing physically. So generally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to request this House to adopt this report and support this report so that we can be able to make those agencies that are in our country to be accountable, and those that are non-existent are scrapped out, and we have a better country for ourselves. Thank you very much, Speaker, sir.
Very well. The next to speak on this is Honorable Nicholas Ngikolong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this chance. I rise to support the report tabled by my able chair and seconded by my able vice chair of our committee of PIC, Social Services, Administration and Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the committee for the long hours they took on going through these reports of the 23 non-compliant state agencies. And also, I would like to thank the Office of the Auditor General for bringing this, the concern of these 23 state agencies to light of our committee. Mr. Speaker, what we saw the time we were going through when we were inviting these agencies one by one to our committee, it was not something which can be left to continue in this country. Because the report which we received from them, it was really not something which it has been guided by any law. And by doing so, some of these agencies, like about 16 of them, which spend about 4 billion in different years, none of them gave a report on the accounts of, or any statement which it has been forwarded to the Office of the Auditor General for audit. None of them. And this tells us, these are only 23. We have so many of state agents like this one, which are receiving taxpayers' money through their parent ministries. But instead of using it as it has been guided by the law, they just use it and they don't want to account for this money. Some of them, they have taken themselves to be like a briefcase NGOs or self-help groups or women groups, which they just operate their issues without being liable for audit at any given time. It was really, Mr. Speaker, embarrassing for them even to express on some of their issues to do with the money they received from their parent ministries. Mr. Speaker, as the law guide or the Constitution, Article 223, Article 226, it gives a clear information that any state agency which receives taxpayers' money, they are supposed at any given year to forward their books for audit at the Office of the Auditor General. But out of this, none of these 23 have done it for the years they have been working or they have been operating. So it brought to our attention that it is good sometimes when we have such agencies operating. When they are being formed, they need the roles and their mandate must be clear so that to guide them on the use of the public resources they receive, for those resources to go to the right people and do the right work for the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, when we were going through these reports, we found that the ministries, they lack also, they are reluctant on the follow-up of this money, which we do first in this house every financial year for every ministry. They do give money to these agents, but they don't follow it up. Mr. Speaker, it is our concern that this house also, we need to have some laws on how we can do some follow-up of this money. Because it is like we are just budgeting this money for these ministries and these agencies, just use it the way they want to use it. Mr. Speaker, the way we were going through, you find that some of the staff from these parent ministries of these agencies, they are the people who are running these agencies. And this one, I don't know which law gives them that mandate, because you cannot be employee somewhere, then again you are doing another work somewhere, unless you have been seconded. Because we tried even to get them and tell them, okay, you say you are the CEO. How can you prove that you are CEO of this organization? There was no documentation, no any document which was stable to support them being working there. So they are just doing it or the sake of doing it because the money comes from the same ministry. Mr. Speaker, we saw so many things, and that's why we request this House today to support this report, approve it, so that we can give the bodies concerned to go ahead and find out what this organization can be done to them. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support and I call upon all the members who are here to support this report so that it can be passed for us to follow this money which it has been wasted for all these years by this organization. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Phyllis Bato. The Honorable Tindi Mwale.
Mr. Speaker,
sorry, I have not seen professors in the House. Please proceed, Professor.
Prepared to speak on the motion. Thank you.
Okay. So Tindi Mwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the bill, the report of the Auditor General on 23 non-compliant state corporations as presented by the Public Investment Committee on Social Service, Administration and Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, being a member of the Watchdog Committee and a Vice Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, and having read the report and listened to my colleagues who happen to be members of the committee, I want to reiterate that for us to end corruption and to increase efficiency in the delivery of government services, it's imperative, Mr. Speaker, that these 23 parastatals are put into account to clearly stipulate why they are not compliant with the law. Mr. Speaker, just to point out some of the reasons why I support the report. Mr. Speaker, the moment a corporation lacks books of account, that corporation should not even exist. Because number one, that corporation cannot even file tax compliance. That corporation, Mr. Speaker, cannot even gauge its performance. And that's why these corporations which lack books of account, Mr. Speaker, are not supposed to operate in this republic. Mr. Speaker, the second point is the issue where the agency lacks permanent staff. Because, Mr. Speaker, the moment you lack permanent staff, there is no way an acting staff will have all the authority as per the Company Act to run the right the procedure and functions of the corporation. So, Mr. Speaker, as I rise up, I also noted that there is lack of commitment from these parastatals in looking for money which had been lost, as stated by my colleagues and also inscribed in the report. Mr. Speaker, there is an issue of secondment of officers from the mother ministry. Mr. Speaker, an officer who is seconded from the mother ministry will have difficulty knowing clearly or knowing the clear functions and the stipulation and the vision and mission of the parastatals. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, for efficiency, to end corruption and to enhance efficiency in government operation, I rise up to support the report. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi. The Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. First and foremost, I think we should do something about corruption in this country. As a committee, Mr. Speaker, and I think this was well elaborated by the chairman of this committee, he made it very clear that there's a lot of corruption. In fact, at one stage, land of the hospital was cropped. And I know when it came to now checking the whole thing to validate the records, Mr. Speaker, The clinic actually went in and hired a private investigator, a private auditor, to be able to look at what has been done. And therefore, I think once we pass this report, Mr. Speaker, we then request that the government actually moves with speed to be able to at least start initiate the program, be able to see what happened in this report, so that you can be able to check some of the land. And I think you can see even in Nakuru, there's that kind of thing. So, Mr. Speaker, we want to have this investigated in broad daylight, because there's a lot of corruption in some of the clinics, as the team went round, and I want to support this report without repeating what the chairman has said, that we should move with the speed. Once it is actually confirmed, within 3 months, to be able to ask those in the anti-corruption and DCI to move the speed to be able to investigate this corruption in some of these medical clinics, what have you. With those few remarks, because of the time, I want to ask the members actually to support this report, because the committee took time to be able to come up with this very, very reasonable report. I support the report. The Honorable Undo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support the Committee of the Public Investment Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture on consideration of the Auditor's General Reports and compliant state corporations. Honorable Speaker, we are now starting to reap the benefits of having split public accounts committees into various subcommittees. When it was one big committee, they did not have the time, the energy, and to dig deep into so-called smaller matters like this one. Honorable Speaker, at least with at this rate, the country is going to be seized of the issues that are bedeviling some of these state corporations and MDS. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the report also brings out a very fundamental issue. Many times we pass various acts of parliament, these to become acts of parliament, and we create very many small bodies, small organs, small councils or committees to operationalize the act of parliament. Unfortunately, probably there are too many, they are too small, and their mandate is not very clear. The cabinet secretary responsible for operationalizing those particular acts of parliament simply ignores, knowing there are no negative consequences, there are no adverse consequences on the management or operationalization of those acts. So therefore, actually, then this calls into question, how do we prepare our bills, how do we make our laws, and then how do we operationalize our laws? And that's why many times when we stand here at the committee of the whole House, Honorable Speaker, me and you and Dr. Nyekana are veterans, we point out of these funny things, but because we do not have numbers, nobody takes care, nobody takes note, and comes down the line to embarrass everybody who is responsible for this particular operationalization of this act. Honorable Speaker, allow me to pick two particular agencies that are mentioned here. And I do so, let me declare from the word go that number 18 and number 19, Estate Agency Registration Board, that's page 9 of the report, and the Valuers Registration Board are boards, professional bodies that register members in the landed profession, which I'm a senior member, and therefore I have authority to speak. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the two substantive acts, the Valuers Act and the Estate Agents Act, the very structure and architecture of the boards are an appendage of the permanent secretary. You would find, Honorable Speaker, when you look at the sources, for example, the Estate Agents Act, Section 27, reads, the Cabinet Secretary may, with the consent of Treasury, out of monies provided by Parliament, monies provided to the State Department, that's for housing, may make to the board such grants as may be necessary to enable it to discharge its functions under this Act. B. Pay remunerations and traveling and other allowances to members of the board other than the members who are public officers in receipt of a salary. The import of the Act, the implication of the Act, these boards were never meant to be independent boards. They were actually meant to be desks in the PS office. Their job is basically register the relevant professionals who pay a registration fee, and that registration fee, Honorable Chair, is taken as part of A&A of that respective State Department. And that's why now it is important that the committee says of this matter need to relook at the architecture of this particular registration boards and find out how can they be made independent, how can they be made accountable, because they would simply say we receive grants and we account to the parent ministry or permanent secretary for that particular purpose. Honorable Speaker, the other point of observation, and this is very critical, that there are some agents that now this established by executive order, the so-called, ambiguous executive order. When you establish a board an organized executive order, but the very import is not a permanent or independent body, and it can be deregistered or de-established, so to speak, with the order of executive order at any particular point. And that's why I would imagine naturally they would therefore account their revenue through the respective department. But that said not undone, Honorable Speaker, I want to commend the committee. They have brought out very salient issues that have never been part and parcel of debate in this country. And now the burden moves to the committee, the Committee of Implementation. And Honorable Speaker, you see it in, I don't know if you see it in public, in the Business House Committee, or you see it in the Speaker's panel. It's extremely important, Honorable Speaker, that we prevail upon the Committee of Implementation, whose chair is none other than my neighbor and my brother-in-law from Budalangi, that within every 6 months or so, they table their reports so that we are able to track what have they done in respect of various reports that have been submitted here. Honorable Speaker, this report has got very juicy and extremely important recommendations that should not be allowed to just lie there. Actually, if there was a way they could process this report before we finalize the budget making process, so that there could be a recommendation that any state corporation, any body established by an executive order, or any body established through an act of parliament to operationalize the act, should not be disbursed funds unless and until they have addressed the anomalies raised by this committee. Then Parliament will start having teeth. Parliament will be Parliament. Honorable Speaker, Parliament as it is, people, many members of the public think we have no teeth to bite. We just come and take money and go home. We know Madare Hospital houses people of different disposition, but that does not give them an excuse at all not to follow the PFM and other relevant acts. Honorable Speaker, for those who are disbursed funds and they did not utilize the funds and did not return the funds to the National Treasury, there can be no other way I urge the committee, this committee, and the committee of implementation to prevail upon these sagas to return that money. And if they don't return that money, interest should accrue from the day when they are supposed to return and do not return, and the same accrued amount plus interest should be netted off for any future disbursement, and those responsible then should be prosecuted as the law requires. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for those comments. I support the report. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, the Honorable Troy Teach. What's your point of order?
Well, we come here to debate.
Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 95. Honorable Speaker, that the mover be called upon to reply.
Reasons. Very well. A member has risen from his place. Order, members. Order. Veteran TJ. Member has risen from his place and indicated that the mover be called upon to reply. Understanding order number 95. Is that the mood of the House? Yes. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as those of a contrary opinion say nay? The nays have it. The debate will continue. So, next is Honorable Victor Koech of Chepalungu. Is in the House?
Yes, of course I'm in the House, yes.
What's your point of order?
You know, Speaker, these are the moments that we learn. You know, members just come here and say 95 and that when they look at that order properly, you have to give reasons. You don't just rise on your place and you assume the Speaker's powers and then you decide that the mood of the House is such that they should be. And two, this is this is an order. Two, the Speaker would find you dilatory and even hold you out of order just because you want to frustrate discussions in the chamber. So, Mr. Speaker, these are the places where we learn some of these things for those of us who are too lazy to read the standing orders and understand them.
TJ, very well, but the matter you are raising has been overtaken by events and the debate will continue. Honorable Member.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Speaker, and equally, like my earlier colleague, Mheshimiwa Oundo, had given indication that indeed it was very necessary for the Public Accounts Committee to be split into several audit committees. This is the reason, Mr. Speaker, that the committee chair has actually, together with his members, looked and came up with a report that is today before this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, while I rise to support this particular motion, I would like to, in particular, having considered and having read and equally having listened to the chair, he has indicated in his report that there are 23 state corporations that didn't comply with PFM Act of actually providing or submitting their financial report to the Auditor General. This is against the law, this is against the PFM Act. In observation, Mr. Speaker, the report indicates that the same state corporations continue to exist in the parent ministry, while in the same time, these state corporations are established with the different sagas. Mr. Speaker, we have been told, and I have read, that executive orders have been given to give way to the existence of this particular corporation. What that, Mr. Speaker, leads to is, Mr. Speaker, failure to have substantive accounting officers in the said state corporations. Failure to have the same, Mr. Speaker, and equally failure to have substantive directors in the said state corporations means, Mr. Speaker, we are as a country operating on a very dangerous ground. Mr. Speaker, it's time as a country that the business of the government is taken seriously, that this parliament takes seriously its mandate given by its people to oversight the executive. And for this reason, I am rising today to support this report, and the same report is to be taken to the relevant authority so that the observation of this report can be taken into consideration, and the people who have gone against the rule of our country be given the justice or be taken to the relevant authorities so that the people of our country can get their justice. I stand to support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to this particular report. That is the report on the Auditor General on the 23 non-compliant state corporations. Honorable Chair, the sole purpose of an audit report, Honorable Speaker, is to ensure that those corporations that are audited are able to make some improvements in the way that they do their things. Honorable Speaker, if you look at this report and when you read this report, Honorable Speaker, you notice that this particular report highlights the plight of the several state corporations that have been established in this country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the concerns that have been raised by this report on these sagas, that they do not comply with the requirements of the PFM Act, Honorable Speaker, are glaring. Honorable Speaker, financial reports have proven to be very interesting reports that everyone seems not to be getting a hang of it. Honorable Speaker, as has been reported in this particular report, some of these sagas are operating without substantive board of management, Honorable Speaker, or rather board of directors. Honorable Speaker, you find that some of these state corporations, Honorable Speaker, do not even have accounting officers in the name of CEOs, Honorable Speaker. And of course, Honorable Speaker, that is a pointer as to what is to be expected at the end of every financial year, Honorable Speaker. When you look at the state corporations that have been listed down, Honorable Speaker, I note with concern a corporation like Tobacco Control Board. Honorable Speaker, I have the privilege of sitting in the Health Committee. And Honorable Speaker, you look at the amount of money that this particular corporation has, and you hear that it does not have an accounting officer, and you hear, Honorable Speaker, that it is not able to do its the financial reports, Honorable Speaker. And you are able to tell yourself, Honorable Speaker, that this is how we lose public money, Honorable Speaker. This government, Honorable Speaker, has an intention and an objective, Honorable Speaker, to fight corruption. And this report, Honorable Speaker, is a very good pointer as to how corruption must be fought, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in the same health committee that I sit, the issue of Mathare National Teaching and Referral Hospital has come up several times, Honorable Speaker. And you look at how the facility is micromanaged by the Mother Ministry, Honorable Speaker, and you're wondering how it's supposed to survive and how it's actually supposed to be able to do its financial reports. Honorable Speaker, just like the committee has proposed, that these corporations should be given their status as their semi-autonomy status, Honorable Speaker, so that they can be able to operate in a good way, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if these particular recommendations that have been made by this committee are actually implemented, we are going to be making a step forward towards dealing with corruption. And Honorable Speaker, it's interesting to be able to live at a time where the audit reports that have been coming out lately, Honorable Speaker, are very sensational. And you look at them and you wonder what kind of picture this is painting. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate this committee for thoroughly looking at those state corporations and actually making these recommendations. And if you look at this report, Honorable Speaker, this committee has timelines that has been stated in this particular report, that by the end of 3 months, these and these should be done. By the end of 3 months, these sanctions should be placed on whoever is failing in their duty. And I want to appreciate this particular committee. And I appreciate also, Honorable Speaker, the wisdom of separating the PIC committees into the smaller committees or other committees that it is sorting. Honorable Speaker, this is one committee that has a lot of work to do, and it is the committee that looks at the real things that happen with the money of the people of the Republic of Kenya. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this particular report, and I urge all the other members to support it so that we can be able to restore sanity in this country, and we can be able to stop corruption using or through prudent financial reporting after prudent use of financial resources of the people of Kenya. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
The Honorable Beatrice Elachi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support this report, Mr. Speaker, but to also appreciate the committee for a job well done. After you realize, Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General just gave in her report also, and she really challenged us as Parliament and as a country that it is time, if we want to really appreciate ourselves and come out of the risks we face when you have debt distress, is how you deal with all these institutions that we have. Mr. Speaker, when you hear the committee giving us information and recommendations that indeed we have parastatals or corporations or institutions that are running, and you don't know their budgets, they don't even report back even the budgets they have spent to the Auditor General, then you realize that is a serious loophole we have in terms of now monies being used, but you cannot see exactly. And that is what the Auditor General was saying, that, Mr. Speaker, there is need when we are auditing to even now see, by example, some of these projects we are talking about. She has tried, she has done 10 of them, and you realize when she went for those public participations, she asked citizens, and citizens told the Auditor General, we have not seen such a project. Now, you realize, Mr. Speaker, in the report, we have, let's say, for example, the refugee team department that deals with refugees. You realize they have donations and grants worth 30 billion. We have the government also that comes in and supports. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine when you don't have, in the end, a financial statement report that analyzes how they have spent money. And you realize we shall overlap and use. And with corruption, Mr. Speaker, it is so easy to use the grants and mismanage these other monies that are there. And so, Mr. Speaker, the first thing we must do is to ask, as the report says, most institutions to prepare and submit their financial reports. But as they do that, Mr. Speaker, I would wish the ministries that have been put into question to bring to this House these reports, so that even when we are doing budgeting now, Mr. Speaker, it is easy, so that people don't blame us as Parliament that we were given power to ensure we divide in equity the purse of this country, and yet we have now left it in such scenarios where they believe we are not looking and we are not itemizing our budgets to be able to know what monies is going where. So, Mr. Speaker, the other thing is the issue of the boards. You remember, Mr. Speaker, we have institutions in this country where every time the ministries will second the board members. So today you have one board member comes in, next week a different person comes in, the other week a different person. By the time you end the year, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the register, you wonder who can follow through to tell you what happened from January, because there's no institutional memory, and yet they are moving, they have per diems, Mr. Speaker, they are moving out, they are doing things out there, and we cannot even trace to know. By the time you are questioning that board, everyone will tell you, I was sent by the PS, and I will send another job to somebody. So can we request now the ministries and the PS, the accounting officer, to ensure if you second an officer to be in a certain board, let that officer maximum at least 6 months, Mr. Speaker, so that by the time he's leaving, he's also accountable and responsible if anyone asks a question. Mr. Speaker, the other thing we must ensure is the system of reporting. These gaps that we have in terms of systems of governance, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at it. Even ourselves, we need to look at Article 223, Mr. Speaker, that everyone is complaining out there. It is being misused, but we have to sit as Parliament and request that if indeed the government will wish to use Article 223, then they have to bring everything to Parliament for pre-approvals, and we ask them, it is an emergency, yes, but are we sure you cannot use the contingency fund instead of using the consolidated fund, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, as I want to finalize, I want to request even this House. You remember there was fire in Embakasi East, Mr. Speaker. That issue is with the DCI. I know also the county government is responsible, and they are supposed to send their officers to go and sit down with the DCI so that we can finalize that report and see how we can be able to ensure the victims are also accountable. They are assisted in. So when we talk of auditing, we are auditing so many things and things that are happening badly. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say it is important for us, as our chair of budget and the team are finalizing, and all our chairmen, the work they are doing, we need to sit and finalize and look at that budget print and assist the country to have a budget that anyone can understand, but more importantly, itemized. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. I can see my whip just telling me, finish, finish. Whip, I have finished. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Peter Kihungi, you are on the...
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine, I think, is to support the report for the committee and to say that these sagas, there are sagas that are working mostly under the sagas mostly under the ministry, which has activities, but some of these sagas are just using government money. And Mr. Speaker, my prayer is that we must revisit some of these parastatals. We realize and we look at the parastatals which are adding value to the ministry. And if we realize that the parastatal is just consuming government money, at this time that we are suffering a lot to try to make the ends meet for this country, we must work out on a way of abolishing them so that we may have a saga that is adding value to the ministry. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I start to support. Thank you.
The Honorable Pasaris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I would like to commend the Public Investment Committee for coming up with this report of the Auditor General on the 23 non-compliant state corporations. Mr. Speaker, the reasons why we require compliance under Article 226 of the Constitution is for accountability, because this is taxpayers' money. It's also for efficiency in running every institution. And to highlight 23 out of 400 state corporations that have not provided audited accounts shows that we do have a failure. I'd like to speak to one particular one that really shows that we also have not devolved our sagas to independent units. If you look at Mathare National Teaching and Referral Hospital, it was a state corporation from 2020, and up to today, it is micromanaged by the Ministry of Health. And because of that, we have a lot of disservice to the people of Nairobi and the people of Kenya, because it deals with mental health, and it is completely understaffed. According to my data, the hospital requires over 366 staff, requires over 1,416 staff, and right now they only have 366. And at the same time, a lot of commodities are missing in the hospital, and the reason they're missing in the hospital is because procurement is done by the Ministry of Health. Now, when you look at the 1.6 billion that is unaccounted for, I think we're looking at the saga, but at the same time, it is the Ministry of Health that is holding the finances, holding the human resources, in spite of the fact that the hospital actually has a board of directors and CEOs. So I feel that even with the physiotherapists association, we've been told that for years they have never filed any audited reports. With the kind of accidents that we have, and with the PWDs requiring physiotherapy, it is really a concern. And I think the reason why they're probably not auditing is because the funds are being kept at the Ministry of Health and being diverted and used for other probably more pressing issues. If we would want to look at the importance of making an institution autonomous, if you look at the Kenyatta University Teaching Research and Referral Hospital, it is actually independent. It has its own board, it has its own money, it makes its own budgets. So even then you can ask for accounts. But I think for us to be asking accounts for entities that don't control their own resources and even their own expenditure becomes a problem. So, and in that case, if budgets are also made at the executive level, then we are never going to achieve universal health care. So I think it's important to really scrutinize and to ask ourselves, while we talk about devolution, bringing services right down to the grassroots, can we also look at devolving the executive, devolving entities? In Nairobi, we need the Mathare National Teaching Referral Hospital, the Spinal Injury Hospital. All these have to be made autonomous so that they can be able to actually put budgets, employ their own staff, make their own expenses, and then be accountable. So for me, I think it's important that the EACC looks very strictly into the 1.6 billion, because in the health sector, we cannot afford to have 1.6 billion unaccounted for. And I really want to commend the Public Investment Committee for coming up with this report and highlighting the 23 entities that are not compliant, but state corporations that are not compliant, because I know that you will find that it is the executive that is holding them ransom and not allowing this child that should grow. I mean, really, Mathare and Spinal Injury should be let to run their own affairs so that they can provide the much needed services when it comes to spinal injuries and when it comes to mental health. Thank you. I support.
Who is up on a point of order? Professor, Honorable, yes. What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 95, in the mood of the House, I would wish that we call the Speaker, the mover, to reply.
Well, it becomes sometimes mechanical for the Speaker to respond to your point of orders, and therefore a member has again, for the second time, reason for misplace, to call upon the mover to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it, and therefore we call the mover to reply.
After you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, allow me to appreciate my colleagues. I want to thank all my colleagues who have spoken onto this report and wish to say thank you for that. And they raised about 1 or 2 issues which are very pertinent. Honorable Speaker, the issue of objectivity of the report to fight corruption has come out very clearly, that indeed if this report is implemented, the government of the day shall benefit from the ills of what happened before. Therefore, it's important and upon now the incumbent government to make use of this report and correct where things did not work well for the previous one. Honorable Speaker, the last issue is the benefit of splitting the group. The 3 PICs has come out, and I want to thank my colleagues that indeed that observation is real, is good, and when we work that way, I'm sure we'll put the government of the day to its objectivity and will be the watchdog to see what is happening behind the scenes of the current government. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to reply.
Very well. We shall defer putting of the question. Yes, again, what's your point of order? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Looking around and under Standing Order 53B, I hereby request you, the Speaker, to defer putting the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Toroitich. We shall defer the putting of the question until a later date. Next order.
Order number 11, the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendments, number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 68 of 2023. Second reading, resumption of debate.
Leader, Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment number 2 Bill 2023, National Assembly Bill number 68 of 2023, be read for the second time. The bill is introduced in keeping with the practice of making various amendments, which
very well. This is a resumption of debate, and this particular matter had been already moved by the leader, and what I'm not sure is who was on the floor then, so it's just resumption of the debate. Was there anyone who was on the floor? There was no balance of time, and therefore possibly we shall give you whip to speak on this, because you are not also spoken on it. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Sorry, I must have missed when the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah moved this. But be that as it may, Honorable Speaker, to simply highlight on the miscellaneous bill, and I'll single out a few things, Honorable Speaker, that are very integral to this particular miscellaneous bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is a proposal in the Traffic Act, and this to be very particular, the Traffic Act Cap 403, that proposes to amend the Traffic Act to incorporate the use of technology in the management of minor traffic offenses. Honorable Speaker, we all live in this country and know the challenges that we face as far as minor traffic offenses is concerned. At times, Honorable Speaker, you have all been stopped by traffic cops of very minor offenses like overspeeding or something, that you've exceeded 5 kilometers per hour or something. And then the traffic officer picks your license, then tells you to park beside the road. You remain there, or rather you are left there for about 2 or 3 or even up to 1 hour or something. And then they tell you, we then produce you in court in another or something in the afternoon. The court is not even sitting. You end up wasting the entire day. We lose revenue as a country, and you get affected. You get affected as an individual. So, Honorable Speaker, such an amendment will really come a long way in integrating that system, helping manage those very minor offenses, that you will be fined. If we get to the level where you can actually be fined on such minor offenses instantly, that you do not need to struggle, you do not need to waste a lot of time, so that you can actually be able to be, you can be left to have some time to go out there and also raise further revenue, not just for yourself, but also for the country. Honorable Speaker, the bill also proposes, there is the University Act Bill 2012 amendment that proposes to amend the Universities Act 2012 to provide for the declaration of technical universities under Section 25(1) of the Act in respect of public institutions that are or are national polytechnics. It also proposes, Honorable Speaker, to amend Section 56(1) to provide the placement board and shall be responsible for placing all the students. This, Honorable Speaker, will help, have a central system of placement of the students. Much of the stress that comes along with the placement of the students can be sorted with the placement board, Honorable Speaker. And that is what the committee, of course, recommended, that Section 25 should only apply to public national polytechnics. And then Section 56(1), there is a need to separate funding and placement of students, so that there is that distinct role, one on funding and the other one on placement. I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
Very well. The Honorable, I can see Gadoni wa Muchomba, but you had not been, your name was not appearing here. But please speak on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm indeed very excited to contribute to the discussions in the afternoon of this House, noting that, Mr. Speaker, I've been here since 2:30 and I've not gotten an opportunity to speak, but I'm glad that you have found it important for me to add my voice on the...
Honorable Gadoni, for record purposes, I'm usually very keen. Your card is having a challenge, so as you speak on this after finishing, please align it so that we can see on the screen. Proceed.
Okay, noted and obliged, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak on this bill, the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendments number 2, Bill of 2023. Mr. Speaker, I request you that you allow me to get some space from my colleagues who are consulting very loudly. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this morning I was just having a discussion with one honorable member who is my colleague who comes from Kirinyaga. And I was talking to her in regards to the recent deaths, very emotional deaths that happened in Kirinyaga after very many families consumed the lethal alcoholic drinks that resulted to not only deaths but also a few members of those families lost their eyesight and forever they will be blind. Mr. Speaker, it is very, very touching, very emotional to see a county congregate together in a very, very remorseful service to bury not 2, not 5, not 10, but 23 persons who are affected by that consumption. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, having come from a county that is also suffering from the same problem, that is Kiambu County, and more specifically Githunguri constituency, where we are also suffering from the same problem of illicit substances proliferation in the villages, affecting the very productive people of the ages of 20 to 45, Mr. Speaker. I will be very, very scared to see anything appearing like ethanol or anything close to that being allowed to come to be traded in this country and to be given any preferential treatment in terms of taxes. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I refer to the recommendation that is appearing on this statute law recommendation on Value Addition Act 2013, number 35 of 2013. The bill proposes to amend the Value Add Tax Act of 2013 to reclassify the supply of gas meters of tariff number 9020.10.00 and the supply of denatured ethanol of tariff number 2207.20.00 as exempt and zero rated respectively. Mr. Speaker, I may not be very familiar with the purpose of these gas meters and ethanol, denatured ethanol. I may not be very privy to the reason why these gas meters and ethanols are being allowed to come into this country. I am not very familiar with what happens, but anything related to ethanol in this country sends shivers in my spine, because the impact and the effect of this ethanol is disastrous, is retrogressive, it is hazardous, and we may not be able to control the use of this based on the history of this country. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that there are members of various committees that sat down and deliberated on this kind of amendment. I will be ready to receive any information on the impact of such value relief for such gases and liquids, with the caution that we must not go back to where we were last week, when we witnessed loss of lives and even loss of capacity to see. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, I was wondering when I was discussing with my colleague here, now that the 5 people out of the 23 that were buried, 5 people remain blind, did we, you know, get a formula of compensation, or did the government come in to support such kind of people in the community so that they can continue living their life positively? That is something that is really disturbing me as a mother, as a woman, because I know the impact of losing sight when you once could see and you cannot see anymore, especially when it comes to providing for your family. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I stand guided and would want to receive more information on why such a proposal is in this piece of amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Jane Kagiri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to support the state law miscellaneous amendments number 2, Bill National Assembly, Bill number 6. Which are very close and I'm passionate about. The first one, Honorable Speaker, is the Traffic Act Cap 403, which proposes that we implement technology in managing minor traffic offenses. Honorable Speaker, my background is computer science, and I appreciate technology being used because it is a way of us being transparent, and I believe when minor traffic offenses are conducted, it would be very transparent for somebody to be stopped, immediately shown through technology what their mistake was, and they can continue proceeding on their journey. Another thing, Honorable Speaker, is with efficiency. Sometimes you find some minor traffic offenses, you're only required to pay 1,000 shillings. But how much paper has been consumed, how much time has been consumed for the person to finally get convicted in court on whatever offense that they had committed? Again, Honorable Speaker, there's the convenience. It is easy for one to be told what the traffic offense is, told to pay online, and immediately proceeds on their journey, Honorable Speaker. Again, Honorable Speaker, it is good that we have accuracy, because many times we find ourselves on the highway, depending on how you negotiate with the traffic officer, they could increase your charges or lower them depending on the conversation. So with technology, we can be sure of accuracy on whatever charges one has, and that will actually be a good way of us maintaining our law and order. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I support technology because it's going to help us on data analysis. Data analysis which may help us understand at what time do people overspeed, at what time do people cause traffic offenses on the road, and that could help us towards us planning better as a country and even for our roads. The second one, Honorable Speaker, I support the Sexual Offences Act 2006, which actually proposes that we have a register for convicted sexual offenders. Honorable Speaker, I support this because, number one, we can ensure public safety. In a neighborhood where people know a person is a convicted sexual offender, they would be more careful and actually take care of their children better and even their loved ones. Honorable Speaker, also it would be a way of deterring crime, because anybody knowing that person is a convicted offender would actually mention to the authorities, and the authorities would monitor such people better. Again, Honorable Speaker, on justice and accountability, it would be good that in case the person is a repeat offender, the justice system would actually these people are known and put on record. Finally, Honorable Speaker, having a register of convicted sexual offenders would be a form of justice to victims, Honorable Speaker, because at least a victim knows the person would not have to do the same to somebody else because they stand on record known for the crime that they committed. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support.
The Honorable Moses Kirima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I hereby support the Miscellaneous Amendment Act, just before, number 2, which is before this Honorable Court. Taking into account that this bill accounts for a number of issues which are so beneficial to the public. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the Value Handling Tax Act of 2013, number 35 of 2013, as it is letting the ethanol, among other issues like the gas meters. It says that the bill proposes to amend the Value Handling Tax Act number 2013 to declassify the supply of gas meters of tariffs number 9028 and the supply of the natured ethanol.
Order, member. The Honorable Wamuchomba. Honorable Wamuchomba. Order, the Honorable Wamuchomba. You are treating the House with disrespect.
Just crossing.
You are crossing.
From one side to the
other. Go all the way, please. No. Bow and come back.
Yes.
Otherwise,
Thank you, Mr.
it is
Speaker.
total disrespect for the House.
The House must be honored.
The House must be honorable. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Then come back. Very good. Proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you. I hope my 2 minutes, which has been taken when direct Honorable Wamuchomba, will not be counted. Mr. Speaker, I am saying that it is dangerous the way it is in this amendment when it comes to letting the natured ethanol of tariff number 2207-2000 as exempt and zero latent respectively. Ethanol is becoming disastrous to the youth of Kenya. Ethanol is used to make simple liquor. Ethanol is the one which is making second generation liquor. It has caused a lot of harm to the poor, to the Azoras in this nation. Ethanol has caused a lot of cry, a lot of injury to those who want just to be quick in getting intoxicated because they cannot afford the right beer. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the way I see it, as if we exempt ethanol and make it zero rated, we are making it available more than the way it is. So this one must be looked carefully as it is this one when it comes to the House to amend the same. This one we must remove the figure zero rated and give it the real taxation as it is supposed. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the Employment Act, whereby it is talking of the Employment Act of 2007, number 11 of 2007. This one is properly in the bill because NIS, it should be included among the other security organs of the government. It has issues which does not need or which does not require to pass through the public service employment bureau as it is supposed. When it comes to the bill, it's proposed to amend the Act of 2007 and exempt the National Intelligence Service from the application of the Act. This one is properly done because NIS deals with very sensitive matter as it relates to the country's security. And as it is, this one is very proper. But now when it comes to the Traffic Act of 20 Cap 443, All other countries which are called developed countries, they have an issue of how you deal with minor traffic offenses. Because you find that somebody has committed a minor traffic offense like overspeeding without knowledge, sometimes when you're in a hurry, or even crossing to the wrong line, even when it's not even necessary, but you're forced by circumstances, like maybe to avoid an accident or something else like that. And when the traffic officer gets you, he ties you on the road side, or he keep you on the road side for hours and hours when trying to negotiate things which are not there, or even taking you to the police station and even locking you in, instead of beating you direct and avoid a lot of time wasting. So the police, having this amendment as it is now, CAP 403, being amended to incorporate the use of technology, we are going even to avoid what we call corruption of the traffic officers. Because, see now, when you are fined by a machine, technology, and it shows that you are being fined 1,000 shillings, you are going to pay your fine and proceed on your safari. Other than being kept on the road side, the police officer come to negotiate with you and demand that you give him bribe so that you can be left to go free. Go to all other developed countries. This is the kind of nature of which things have been taking place. We have been late about it. We are timely on that amendment, and it shouldn't be as it is, so that at least the country can be able to develop and save time, of which time when it is saved, we also save money. Now, the last one is when it comes to the public holiday. This holiday we have been calling Utamaduni Day as a public holiday has been misused. It has been misused in a way that it does not meet the due requirement of Utamaduni Day. In Kenya, as we speak now, nobody can tell what is supposed to be worn on Utamaduni Day, what is supposed to be done on Utamaduni Day, what is supposed to be done on that Utamaduni Day, so that should not be a public holiday. Less people have the Utamaduni Day depending on their culture and the occasion in which they are in. So when it is proposed that we amend the Public Holidays Act to delete the provisions of Utamaduni Day as a public holiday, that's the most right one. Because even if you come to a common community like Imeru, where we have 9 sub-tribes, the Dharakas of Wakina Murugara, the Kirimas, the other people from Mutembei, we are the same culture, but the Utamaduni is very different. So these people have their own day, and it should not be declared a public holiday. These people set their own culture, or they want to have their Utamaduni Day, other than making it a public holiday, generalizing. When you go to Ruolad or Busia, where we have Waundo or somebody else like that, you find that the Utamaduni Day is different from what is supposed to be in Imeru. Let people have their own Utamaduni Day, of which they should not be a public holiday, because it depends on what is being done when. Because like when it comes to initiation, the way we call it Utamaduni Day is very different from the way I see the Maragolis calling theirs. So this day should not be a public holiday, because when we declare or when we make this country abandoned with Utamaduni Day, with public holidays, sincerely we are making the country poor. With those few remarks, I thereby support the bill, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes, let's have the Honorable Eric Muchangi, Chairman, Labour Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I wish to rise to contribute to this bill, the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill, number 2. Honorable Speaker, I wish to support the idea to amend the Traffic Act to incorporate the use of technology in the management of minor traffic offenses. Honorable Speaker, all over the world, now technology is being embraced. And if you go to the developed world, people do not spend all their time on the road dealing with the police officers. What happens in our country, Honorable Speaker, is that the police will want to arrest you, detain you for hours and hours, so that in the process they can extort some money or even exploit the members of the public. But with the use of technology, Honorable Speaker, it will be used as a deterrent measure by the people in this republic, and that people will prefer to pay instant fines when technology is integrated or incorporated. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to support so that we can save the amount of time that we spend on our roads with traffic officers, and so that now we can be more productive as a country. Honorable Speaker, I also wish to support the idea of amending the Sexual Offences Act of 2006, which will provide that convicts shall be kept and maintained by the records will be maintained and kept by the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. Honorable Speaker, this also will act as a deterrent measure, because there are those repeat offenders, Honorable Speaker, who will now have to fear that their records will be maintained by the judiciary. And I think this will be a good treatment to them, because in my committee, we have been spending a lot of time discussing these issues of sexual offenses in different sectors. And I think, Honorable Speaker, this will be a good move. Honorable Speaker, I have reservations about the value-added tax. The idea to amend the value-added tax to 2013 to reclassify the supply of gas meters of tariff number 9028-1000 and the supply of denatured ethanol of tariff number 2207-2000 as exempt and zero rated respectively. And Honorable Speaker, this is an area that we would like be clarified, because when ethanol is mentioned, Honorable Speaker, some of us get very worried, because we are coming from a community where the young people are drowning in the abuse of alcohol and consumption of illicit brew. And I'll confirm to this House, Honorable Speaker, that our young people, many of them, even the very educated, are getting lost. And we are very worried as a community, because we are wondering what will happen of our tomorrow when we lose young people to illicit brews. So, Honorable Speaker, we would seek a clarification before we expedite on this bill, so that we can be assured that this amendment will not make things worse for our young people. And it is just recently, Honorable Speaker, when the courts legalized Moratina. And you see, this came as good news to some quarters. And you see, Honorable Speaker, what our people have been consuming and dying of is not Moratina. It is these illicit brews manufactured on the streets by use of this ethanol. And you see, this is what we are keen on. We do not want that the supply of ethanol made so easy, or the sale of ethanol made so easy, such that it is available for the people who want to kill our young people through the sale of this illicit brew. So with those comments, Honorable Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Edith Nyenze.
Thank you, Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to say that I support the amendment bill and the miscellaneous amendment bill on the Traffic Act, which is trying to amend the bills on minor traffic offenses. I would say that this one is an amendment which has come in time to amend the bill on minor traffic offenses by the introduction of technology. This will actually improve the discipline on our roads and bring orderliness. And this will actually discourage corruption and wastage of time on our roads, as it also helps helps us ensure that there are records which are kept for everyone, and these records would ensure that people don't keep on repeating the same offenses, knowing that the records are in place. And this will bring orderliness and will also deter us from, and the drivers from committing more offenses, knowing that they are being recorded, since there is that technology which would do that. So I support the amendment on CAP 403. The other thing, Speaker, let me take this opportunity to condole with the people, especially 9 people who died
along Katangi, Machakos, Kitui, Nairobi Road yesterday when the driver lost control and crashed, and more than 9 people died on the spot. So as I support this traffic amendment bill, let me also condole with these families who lost their loved ones. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Very well. The Honorable John Waluke.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance also to support this traffic amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, it is good to have this bill through so that we can save many lives of our people whom we have been losing almost 3,000 people every year. Honorable Speaker, I have been to US, I've stayed in the US for some time. Honorable Speaker, police don't chase drivers on the road like what they do here, Mr. Speaker, or retain the driver for hours, keeping either your license, driving license, or they take the car key to keep you for very many hours. Honorable Speaker, what they do, they use mostly the CCTV camera, and people obey the traffic rules. When it is stopped, Honorable Speaker, all the drivers will obey the rules, and the driving there, Mr. Speaker, is very smooth, and there are very many little accidents, not like what we see here every day. When you watch news, Mr. Speaker, you will see that the trailer has killed so many people, or like what we saw yesterday on TV, Honorable Speaker, with a very young child who lost her life. Mr. Speaker, our police here action should be taken to make sure that police do their jobs, do their work, because they are employed to look after us, the people of Kenya, and our properties. But, Mr. Speaker, for many times, sometimes these accidents in this country are caused even with the police. They can even stop a vehicle and then another vehicle come and hit and even kill people. So, Mr. Speaker, it is good that we must be very serious now with this amendment traffic act that is on the floor of the House, so that, Mr. Speaker, the new technologies that is coming changes every year, every time. Mr. Speaker, Kenyan police should also follow the rules and order of the Traffic Act, not just to be there to collect either money or to waste somebody's time. Either that person is going to do business, and because he was wrong, either on traffic lights or something. Mr. Speaker, this should be taken very serious. I raise to support this bill and ask the colleagues to pass this bill so that, Mr. Speaker, we can save many lives of our people who are getting lost on accidents. I support the Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
The Honorable Ridikiri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I like to support the various amendments on various sections in this bill. And first, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of the Universities Act 2012, number 42 of 2022. Mr. Speaker, the omission of the national polytechnics and institutions which were not classified as government institutions where there were students who are not sponsored by the government, I think this amendment is addressing that problem. We need to have all the students placed into the various institutions because we have students who have sponsored, self-sponsored, and they miss placement because the Act does not allow that. So I support this amendment that all students be placed to all government universities and colleges. Mr. Speaker, I also like to support the amendment on the Sexual Offence Act. Mr. Speaker, it's the high time that we keep a coordinated register of all the sexual offences. Our girls and mothers have been victims of sexual harassment, sexual murders, sexual disadvantages, and there seems to be no central registry of such cases, so that one can commit an offense in Kisumu and run away and commit another one in Meru and run away, because there is no centrality in terms of their cases, even when they appear in court. So this amendment is coming handy, that we have a central registry where all matters that are presented to court within the Republic of Kenya are registered and kept so that they can be a referral in the case those offenders appear again. Mr. Speaker, I really support the amendment on the usage of technology, and say that we need a whole integrated technology that will bring information for any offense, for any particular drive on the road, that we have a record that is coordinated by the courts, in courts, by the police, NCA, insurance companies, and even financiers. Because that's one of the things that is really missing in this country. You find people committing traffic offenses, and they're given a license. It is withdrawn, and because the other arm of the government is not coordinated with the other one, you find that person is also given a license again. So I think this is amendment of usage of technology by all aspect is coming in handy, and therefore I support. Mr. Speaker, the issue of the VAT, this bill on tax on what is called denatured ethanol. The denatured ethanol is ethanol that has been combined with what is called denaturant, making it undrinkable, making the chemical undrinkable. So that's what the bill is saying. Meaning, it is not the pure ethanol, because the pure ethanol is pure alcohol. So this one is addressing the importation of that industrial chemical called denatured ethanol, which can be used for industrial use. The only problem now is it can be used as a conduit for ethanol, which has been consumed as alcohol, ethanol. So I think this is okay, but we have to be very careful, because in the process of simulating the denatured ethanol, the possibility of also the scrupulous and corrupt people bringing in ethanol is very high. But I really join our brothers and sisters in Kirinyaga, and not only Kirinyaga, even other parts of this country where people have died because of consuming ethanol. So this is not a bad bill, but we need to be very careful when it comes to that act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. We have the Honorable Wilberforce Oundo. Do you want to speak on this? Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill number 68 for National Assembly of 2023, but a visual reservation because all my life in the House I have had reservation about the mischief that normally ends up being achieved through miscellaneous amendment. And I cannot drop that particular position because I sincerely believe that some of the amendments being proposed sometimes go to the depth of the bill to an extent that we need to be treated carefully. Honorable Speaker, it provides several bills to be amended: the Oaths and Statutory Declarations, the Advocates Act, the Notaries Public Act, the Civil Procedure Act, Public Holidays Act. And I want to mention my colleague. Honorable Speaker, 10th October has always been nostalgically Moi Day. Those of us who went to school during Maziwa ya Nyayo, Loyalty Pledge, Tawala Kenya Tawala, we look back with nostalgia. Just because of our typical politics, we are in a hurry to erase the good things that Baba Moi used to give to us. Members would remember how we would joyfully line up the roads in our rural areas with the miniature flags, cheering the motorcade of Baba Moi, and we would rise out of the sunroof of wonderful Mercedes-Benz and wave to us. And that day, Honorable Speaker, when you go to class the next day, you will get all the marks because you will feel energized. As a society, we should not allow that kind of a feeling to go. It robs us of our history. It robs us of our pride. We need to find a way of bringing it back. The reference to Tamaduni Day had some little significance, but I totally agree with my colleague who says, Utamaduni is about our culture. These different communities celebrate their culture on different dates. So having a fixed day does not make sense. And I would, as at the committee of the whole House, I'll give it an attempt to return Moi Day, so that many of us who have a problem with current technology allow us to celebrate our good days, because by then we didn't have PlayStations, there were no TV. The only thing we would entertain ourselves is probably marching like Moi used to march when you'd inspect guards of honor. Honorable Speaker, when we go to the next act being amended, that's the Trustees Perpetual Succession Act, Cap 164, the amendment might look routine, all dealing with the change of the word pension fund, principle. But then, Honorable Speaker, the various schedules attached to it that are being amended could be substantial. The fees that are being initiated here could be substantial. And that's why I have argued, such kind of amendments, why not just bring the bill? Subject the bill to public participation on its own, so that those who have got personal interest, the practitioners in the field, can actually give proper input. But as it is, Honorable Speaker, these kind of amendments, the substance of the matter is going to be changed. So again, I would have to make an amendment so that we delete this. So that let's go for substantive amendments, because there are so many things that have moved on. The National Training Act, I don't want to make a comment, but allow me to just make a comment on the Traffic Act. Honorable Speaker, I remember some years back when in the corporate world, I was late for a meeting to go and make a presentation that was going to give my organization 10 million then. That's around 2010, to about 2007, was not small amount of money. I got a traffic officer who stopped me, and I was talking on the mobile phone. And he wasted my time. So, Speaker, what I did, and I must confess my sins because I'm in the period of Lent, I left my key, plus the car, plus the traffic officer. I went away with the key. Left the traffic officer in the car, didn't lock it, opened the windows, hopped into a taxi, and left him there because I could not afford to waste that time. So these amendments that are being brought here that will allow electronic payment of fines, accepting the charges and the rest is very progressive. We must support it. It's very progressive. The Sexual Offences Act, Honorable Speaker, I come from a community where cases of child abuse, sexual molestation, both for the boy and the girl child, are becoming rampant. And indeed, many times, the convict or the offender will be released and come and threaten and intimidate the witnesses and the victim. And so for that reason, many of the cases go unreported because, as they say, there's nothing I will do to the offender. It's a good idea that a register is kept by the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, so the information can be shared amongst the various cadres of courts. But, Honorable Speaker, we need to go a bit further. Just like you have your records as Registrar of Persons in terms of ID, birth certificate, and the rest, a convicted sexual offender, that conviction should be part of personal data. So that for any reason, if we get the way you normally see in the movies, you can just key and get all the personal data, and some unclassified personal data of a person. A sexual offender, a convicted sexual offender, that information should be considered not personal, should not be considered classified, but should be available. So that when I see a sexual offender probably hovering around children, I should raise an alarm in whichever way we can raise it, so that sexual offender must not be allowed to come close to children especially. So, Honorable Speaker, we'd also find a way, this new system they want to come up with, they can cooperate the same. Honorable Speaker, I want to skip the veterinary because I'm not a veterinary doctor. I might not understand exactly what the amendments are about. But allow me, Honorable Speaker, to speak about the Universities Act. There are two very critical amendments being proposed here. Initially, a former National Polytechnic could be declared a technical university. That's why you found a technical university came out of, I think, the Nairobi Polytechnic, Mombasa, all over. So actually here it's speaking to, is now trying to expand, because we are going to declare a number of TVETs or TTI to be technical or national polytechnics. They might not have the requisite infrastructure for them to get to that position. And that's why the amendment under bill now expands the requirements or the criteria to include the requisite physical facilities and human resource capacity that are appropriate for technical university. And I hope once this passes, we need to also put in place criteria for nomination as a national polytechnic because of the geopolitics that has pervaded this country. Bumbe TTI, that was established 1974, and it was the foundation stone was laid in 1974 when Professor Julio Jambo was the MP for then Busia Central, and opened by Baba Moi in 1977, has never been elevated to National Polytechnic. This, regardless of the fact that it has got all the infrastructure it requires, successive governments, successive donors have given us money to get to a point that we are far much bigger than any other, but it has never been given that status. We keep on to urge the national government, give us that status so that we can eventually encourage the community and we get a technical university status. I agree totally with the provision that the lead government sponsored and making it universal, that any child who has to go to university, whether you are going to private university, you are going to government public university, you must meet some academic qualifications. And who can be better placed to succeed academic qualification is the Central Placement Board. With those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I...
Very well. The Honorable Esther Passaris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statute law miscellaneous amendment brought in by the majority leader for the following reasons. When you look at the Traffic Act, I believe that everybody has actually lost respect for the force, because we see the force out there. Whenever we see them, we think all they want to do is ask for a bribe. And I think the fact that we're going to be taking the fines to technology-driven mechanisms, we will actually end up having a lot more respect for the force, which is necessary for us to be able to trust them with our security. When you look at technology-driven fines, I would like to see us go a step ahead and integrate the surveillance cameras where we spend so much money to actually be able to pick out petty traffic offenses. I recall in the 80s when I went to the US, and as we were driving in the US, somebody from our car threw a paper out of the window. And we drove quite a number of kilometers, and then we were stopped. And when we were stopped, straight away a fine was levied, and one had to pay the fine immediately, given a ticket and the fine is levied. I think when we go into a system where we collect such data electronically, we will also be able to reduce road carnage. The reason we have road carnage is drivers who have committed the offense and probably their cases are still going on, or they come out and they killed a few people, because we do not know who those drivers were, right? You end up hiring the same drivers, recycling them, and then before you know it, you're having an increase in road carnage. So I think it's important for us to integrate the whole system of how we manage our traffic offenses, and I believe that it will actually be able to also help us collect more revenue, which is absolutely needed. When it comes to the Sexual Offences Act of 2006, and having a record of perpetrators, that is so important. The reason why it's important is because every single day we hire people. For instance, you could have a pedophile out there who is a teacher, and then for some unknown reason he's out on bail, and I believe that we should actually track these people, because if we don't keep the record, whether it's pre-trial or post-trial, for me, we have a situation where a pedophile might be hired in a school of children, and then you're continuing having a lot more sexual gender-based violence against the citizens. We need to be able to draw the lines on human rights and keeping the vulnerable society safe. When it comes to the zero rating of ethanol, I believe that ethanol encourages us to have clean cooking, and we need to ensure that we are part and parcel of saving the globe. We've got quite a number of people that have made investments in the area of clean cooking, and by zero rating the tax on ethanol, we will ensure that the ethanol supply is affordable and giving an alternative to charcoal and harmful substances that people use to cook. So all in all, I believe that these are very good amendments, and I stand to support. Thank you.
Next to speak on this, we have the Honorable Beatrice Elachi. Are you speaking on this?
Yes.
Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the statute law miscellaneous amendment. Mr. Speaker, in appreciating that there's always time to sometimes reflect. And I know, as Dr. said, that sometimes also when you bring in a miscellaneous bill, it's always good to look at the original and ask yourself, why do we need that amendment? But having said that, I want to look at the Public Holidays Act, and I'll say the same. I won't say change or everything, but I will wish this House will come up also with a way of appreciating every leader who has indeed been in this country, stood for the country. We must have something to appreciate, to remember them. And when you're remembering is to look at what legacy did they ever leave for our country. We are among the East Africa, and Mr. Speaker, it's like it's only in Kenya where we don't appreciate leaders who have done so much for our country. And I think it's important. So as much as we are bringing in utamaduni, I'm hoping we shall have a bill that will remember all our presidents, former, those who have gone to heaven, the work they have done, and we start appreciating and indeed going to the archives and look at what best was their legacy. Mr. Speaker, I want to start with the Traffic Act and just say that it is important, yes, to have the intelligence transport system now. And this will help, Mr. Speaker, when I look at how we use our policemen, that every policeman is at the roundabouts, trying to see how we are going. You see, one of the cultures we have, Mr. Speaker, is that all of us are always in a hurry. Yet when you go to countries like Pakistan, where we have 8 million people in the city, Mr. Speaker, and you will never find a challenge of traffic. Because the people know you just follow each other. But since us as a country, we have to go through this, and then we have to bring in the fines. But Mr. Speaker, I would say, if you are fined 3 times, at every time, because you know you will just pay your fine. So you will always be on speed, then you need to have another discipline where 3 times you are denied your license. There's no renewal of license. I mean, there must be discipline. There's no need of saying we have fines so we can just be running all over. And look at how we've had accidents, Mr. Speaker. It is so sad. And every day there's an accident. We are losing children. We have lost every person. I think it is important. Mr. Speaker, on the Sexual Offences Act, today we had a meeting with a team from Kibra under the SDGs. And it was a very sad story when I looked at what the girls are now writing, Mr. Speaker. And so this amendment is going to really help the issue of sexual offenses and offenders, that we can have a register maintained. And this register, not just maintained, I think it's also time because it's not just about outside there, Mr. Speaker. You know, today, if a woman is married with a child, it is very sad when the father, who has now become the father, decides now, this will also be my wife. And this girl will never talk about it until one day you always look at the face and you'll see the face, this girl has something to say. And it is happening in many homes, Mr. Speaker. And you find the woman now has to stay there because he says, I have these 5 children, and who will take care of them? And so it is very sad, and it is all over. So this incest thing, Mr. Speaker, is not very good. And so while we put in the register, we have to go beyond and look. We have to look at it. We have to start in schools. We have to call the names that are names. You know, these things of telling a child this thing is called this and it's not called that way because you are fearing. Today, they are the ones even teaching. And so we have to really see how to protect our children. Mr. Speaker, on the Office of the Attorney General Act, Mr. Speaker, as we make this an independent office, we have to also try and look at the regulations. And I am hoping the chair of JLAC will look at these regulations so that we don't come back here to find ourselves in a conflict between Public Service Commission and the AG's office because of employment. Because you see, the law says you have to go through Public Service Commission, but we are saying because the AG has gone through a lot and maybe most of the cases he feels he wants to employ the state officers who will be going to court and defending or something. But there's need to knit out that so that we don't have that conflict. Also, as you make it an independent office, then we need to ask ourselves, is the AG going to be sitting again in the executive? Because you see, all independent offices are independent. And for now, when we have cabinet, the AG sits in the executive. So is he going to sit in it? We have to also organize that when we make it an independent office, then he goes with the accolades of that independent office, and so there are opportunities and also there are disadvantages, or maybe that is how they would wish it to be. That's okay, but we must organize so that if the DPP is independent, we have never seen him in the cabinet, Mr. Speaker, that is the same way we have to now start seeing the AG's office when we pass this. Mr. Speaker, the University Act, we have to ask ourselves, the polytechnics. Remember, Mr. Speaker, recently when the team, COOPS, was now identifying or recruiting now students to go to different universities, they ended up sending children without knowing that some of them will not afford. And some were taken to private universities. They are doing their medicine and they are really struggling. And so it is important, even as we continue this placement, the board of shall ensure. And you know, Mr. Speaker, with the new system of identifying my kids who are vulnerable, those who you and me have taken through bursary, they have finished school, meaning as they go to university or to college, they also need bursaries. And you realized with the system itself, many students and parents really went through a lot of challenges. So even as we do this, Mr. Speaker, let us look and reorganize all this, as we say, that it is important, yes, for placement, but let us follow and ensure students who have been there and vulnerable and have put in the system that I have been funded in my education system, either through bursary or through a sponsor, must be the same. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, even as I support, as I have said, it will be very critical for some of these things so that we don't find ourselves in a conflict of overlapping functions again, and then you find yourselves every day in cases, and it will not be healthy. It will not be healthy for Public Service Commission. It will not be healthy, as I said, for the AG's office. And I just want to really appreciate that the team has done its work, but I believe we have an opportunity when we come indeed to the Committee of Whole to look at all those amendments. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Very well. The Chair, like I hope, and I'm happy when the House, they speak on Attorney General's office will really require, when you'll be replying, your mind. Next to speak on this is the Honorable Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also rise to support the amendments, the miscellaneous amendments, Honorable Speaker, that have been voted. And Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate whoever came up with this miscellaneous amendment, because Honorable Speaker, through a small amendment, we are able to make a difference. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that the little amendments that we want to call small in this particular amendments presented in this House today are making a huge difference. Honorable Speaker, I realize that when you're a member of Parliament, you have to be a jack of all trades. You have to speak to issues that you are an expert in, and those that you have no experience or expertise. Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate whoever went through these particular bills and was able to notice the inconsistencies or the lack of consistency among several other statute laws, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I want to speak about the public holidays, just like many other members have spoken to. Honorable Speaker, Kenya has a rich heritage and a serious cultural diversity. We are diverse in many ways, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I remember when we were making posters, you know, it is in the business of politicians to be able to make a poster with their image on it, and a few of them choose not to have an image when there is a specific day, a national day. And Honorable Speaker, I remember in 2020, I think in 2021 and 2022, we would make frantic calls confirming with our communication teams whether it is Huduma or Utamaduni Day. There was a lot of confusion, Honorable Speaker, in that Public Holidays Act, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I kept asking myself, what exactly is the significance of this particular holiday? But Honorable Speaker, I'm glad that someone has been able to go through it and they have been able to actually bring this miscellaneous amendment, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support the Honorable Member that mentioned here that before this became Utamaduni Day, it was Moi Day. Honorable Speaker, like I have said before, I might not have lived experiences to be able to have seen what Moi did and how beautiful or not so beautiful it was when Moi was here. And Honorable Speaker, even when you go into the archives of the videos and the comments that are and the writings that people do, Honorable Speaker, you literally live in that moment where Moi was here. And Honorable Speaker, I also at times feel a little bit guilty that we might not have an opportunity to relive and be able to remember what Moi did or the kind of things that would be done in the eras of Moi. So that's it, Honorable Speaker. I appreciate that this has been deleted so that we can be able to celebrate and be able to appreciate our rich heritage and our cultural diversity as a country. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of the Industrial Training Act, Honorable Speaker, I've had the opportunity, I think it's beautiful sitting here, Honorable Speaker, because you get the time to be able to look at so many things. Having looked at the inconsistency between the Industrial Training Act remittance of that particular fee and that of KRA, Honorable Speaker, you know, any other person who sees KRA right now would have a comment on the same, but I support this totally, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think the Traffic Act is a very popular act that has been spoken to by most members, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that just like members have said, this particular provision, Honorable Speaker, will help us reduce corruption. This government, Honorable Speaker, is keen on fighting corruption. And I think the most glaring corruption, Honorable Speaker, that we see every day is the corruption on our roads. Honorable Speaker, you are behind a matatu on the road, and then there is a traffic police officer. They stand and are pointing. I think there is a signal language that they use, Honorable Speaker. And then the matatu goes, and then looks like they're braking, and then takes off. If you're keen, Honorable Speaker, you get to see the detail of what is dropped, and you are able to conclude in your own way what that particular dropping meant, Honorable Speaker. And I think this, Honorable Speaker, is going to help us in curbing this corruption. Because, Honorable Speaker, if you find me in contravention of whatever rules and regulations are on the road, I pay. And if I delay the payment, Honorable Speaker, just like Rwanda have, you get to be picked up from your house. Honorable Speaker, you know, being arrested is scary enough for most people. Okay, maybe I can speak for myself. I think it must be scary for most people because it is to me. So that, Honorable Speaker, we can be able to bring back sanity on the roads. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say that, you know, many a times when accidents happen, Honorable Speaker, when they occur, people will be like, can Parliament do this? Can a legislation be done on this? Honorable Speaker, I want to say, we can hardly legislate on manners. Table manners, road manners, you know, those kind of manners, Honorable Speaker. So I think we call upon ourselves to be able to be mannerful, to have a lot of manners when dealing with especially issues to do with the road. Honorable Speaker, I'm very happy about the Sexual Offences Act amendment. Honorable Speaker, that we have a register. Honorable Speaker, I think this is a very important amendment so that we can be able to have and pin those people who are sexual offenders, Honorable Speaker, because an offender is likely to reoffend every other time. So it's always important, Honorable Speaker, to have a tag on them. And this tag, Honorable Speaker, is not only going to be important to the law enforcers, Honorable Speaker, it is also going to be important to the community. In an event that this person is readmitted back to the community should be able to know the characteristics and the type of behavior that this person has, Honorable Speaker, for caution's sake, Honorable Speaker, so that we are able to know that within our locality, we have someone who has such kind of behaviors, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just to speak to, of course, I would have wished that we also have a tag of those suspected sexual offenders, Honorable Speaker, but you see, I'm out of order because you cannot list someone before you are able to convict them for that particular crime, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I also want to speak to the issue of the Universities Act. I'm totally in agreement, Honorable Speaker. I agree with it, and it is very important, Honorable Speaker, and significant. Honorable Speaker, allow me to add my voice on the Value Added Tax Act of 2013 amendment, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first I want to say that this country is fighting with illicit brew. Honorable Speaker, illicit brew, you know, I at times see other conversations, Honorable Speaker, and I feel like maybe the people who are making some other comments, Honorable Speaker, have never come head on with the effects of illicit brew, Honorable Speaker. They have not seen the effect on anyone who is close to them, Honorable Speaker, be it a relative, be it a friend, be it a neighbor, Honorable Speaker. And I support any kind of efforts, Honorable Speaker, that are geared towards finishing the illicit brew, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, just like I said, as a member of Parliament, you are a jack of all trades. Of course, Honorable Speaker, I have been forced to be able to tell the difference and the classes and classifications of ethanol, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say that, Honorable Speaker, I am aware that Uhuru only produces ethanol, Honorable Speaker, and of course it's not sufficient. And Honorable Speaker, the greatest business and the hardest business to do, Honorable Speaker, is to actually import ethanol. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at the contributing factors why we have killer brews, Honorable Speaker, is because of the hardship, the kind of bureaucracy, the kind of taxes that is involved with importation of ethanol, Honorable Speaker. So what people do, they actually resort to creating or making their own ethanol, Honorable Speaker, which ends up killing people, Honorable Speaker. However, Honorable Speaker, having looked at what denatured ethanol is, Honorable Speaker, this is basically for industrial use, Honorable Speaker. It's actually for commercial use, Honorable Speaker. And this particular type of ethanol that is being mentioned and referred to here, Honorable Speaker, is not fit for human consumption, Honorable Speaker. So no one should use the lenses of consumable ethanol to be able to judge this particular amendment, Honorable Speaker, because this is entirely for commercial use and industrial use, Honorable Speaker. It's not for consumption at all costs, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say that I support the amendments in this particular bill, bills that have been put down here, Honorable Speaker, so that we can make them more efficient, so that we can make them more compliant and make them more progressive to the changing times and ways of doing things in this country, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I support these particular amendments. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Gideon Mulungi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill. Mr. Speaker, let me, on the onset, start by thanking the committee and the chair in particular of JLAC for coming up with these very progressive and perpetual amendments to the law. And I want to assure the committee and JLAC that I support these amendments and I stand with them. Mr. Speaker, the chair of JLAC, although I can see is on phone, is a very high-ranking member of this house, and I have a very high regard for him, and I don't even need to read anything. Once I know the chair was present and he signed these amendments, I will support them with my eyes closed. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I rise to add my voice to these amendments, starting with the amendment to the Traffic Act, which proposes technology, adoption of technology. Mr. Speaker, if you recall, each one of us has met a police officer and has committed a traffic offense. And when you are caught with a traffic offense, the first thing the police officer will tell you is he enters to your car and tells you, let's go to the police station. Or he picks your keys, your car keys, and you are therefore left helpless and very grounded. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to support these amendments because they will ease that burden of petty offenses of traffic, so that you are charged on the spot and you pay online, you pay your fine online. So, Mr. Speaker, I also want to support the amendment on sexual offenses and the defilement. Mr. Speaker, many times you come across sexual offenders and sometimes you don't know them, and they are taken to court and they are not known, and they commit offenses several times. You are taken to prison for maybe 7 years, you come out, commit another one, and maybe there is no reference to what you have done before. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, want to support this amendment that we keep a register of all the sexual offenders, and moving forward, I think we should keep a register of all the other offenders, including capital offenses and even corruption, money laundering offenses. Mr. Speaker, on the matter of the Universities Act, there has been some kind of discrimination and fairness to students who want to join public universities privately, who are self-sponsored and who are not sponsored by the government. And therefore, I want to support this amendment that there be a central placement board that caters for all the students, irrespective of your background, irrespective of whether you are poor or you are rich, irrespective of which university you want to join, so that there is fairness to all the students all over the country. Mr. Speaker, on the matter of public holidays, in Kenya we have many public holidays. Sometimes they even pass without knowing. And you only come to realize when the minister gazettes them. And you see national celebrations headed by state officials. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would like to support this amendment that the duplicate public holidays appearing in October, that is the formerly Moi Day, which was later converted to Utamaduni Day and the Kenyatta Day, one of them should be deleted. And therefore, I support that amendment that Utamaduni Day being deleted as a public holiday in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I also want to support the amendment on removal of VAT on ethanol. So, Speaker, as you realize, there has been a lot of taxation issues all over the country, and the Kenyans are overburdened, and therefore any move to remove VAT on some items that touches the common mwananchi, I support it fully, and therefore these amendments are very progressive and very perpetual to the law, and they will help Kenya to comply with the law and make Kenya a better place to live on. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, once again, thank you, the chair for JLAC. You are my friend, you are my neighbor. And any time, any day, even midnight, I will support you fully. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Sioi, Lillian Chebet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to also contribute on this. I would like to contribute on the proposed amendment on Traffic Act to incorporate the use of technology in the management of minor traffic offenses. Mr. Speaker, I'm in support of this because we have seen people waste a lot of time on road, struggling with the police officers, trying to fix the mistakes they have made. I want to support this amendment because it is going to curb corruption, and if possible, if these people, because there are some minor mistakes that you make that you really don't need to go to court. These are mistakes that you can just be charged there, and probably you're given a pay bill and you pay the fine and you continue with your work. So I want to support this, Mr. Speaker, and I also want to support the amendment on sexual offenses. This has been a very big issue in the society, Mr. Speaker. In this country, we have seen the people who have, the offenders going free, even after having sexually harassed or defiled some children in the estates. But we realize even after taking them to the court, they come out on bond and they go and do the very same crime elsewhere. So I want to support this, because when we do this, we are going to, people will be careful, because we will know that this person was prosecuted of a certain offense, and therefore we have to be careful as that case is being is ongoing. The other people who are living within the same perimeter with that person can be careful and be told to be cautious, because this is one person who can again harm the very same people who are there. And it will also help, because when this person is accused the second time, it will enable the magistrate to put the charges higher than what he expects, because this is one person that now we can be sure he is an offender and he needs to be prosecuted for that offense that he's doing. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Yes, what's your point of order, Honorable Idikiri?
Mr. Speaker, I refer starting order 95 and ask the mover please to reply.
Very well, Honorable Idikiri. And even as you stand on standing order number 95, there's no any further interest in this particular debate. And therefore, I want to call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, as I rise to reply, allow me to first thank all the members who, since the beginning of this debate in the last session last year, have contributed to this debate with very good proposals and proposed amendments, and also take this opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to thank the Jailer Committee led under the able chairmanship of Sir George Murugara for the report that he tabled on the amendments proposed in this miscellaneous statutory bill. Honorable Speaker, this statute law had very many amendments, and I have listened to many of those proposals or contributions by members. And I want to agree especially with the member for Nandi County, the Honorable Cynthia Muge, who just contributed a few minutes ago and went at length to explain to Kenyans what the issue of ethanol that is being dealt with in this bill pertains to. That this is not ethanol that is used for human consumption, this is denatured ethanol. And denatured ethanol, Honorable Speaker, you cannot even put it in your mouth. It's very bitter and is used for other industrial uses. Honorable Speaker, this is what is being targeted. Otherwise, there was that concern even among us members of the public during public participation that this may touch on the normal ethanol used for production of alcohol that you have seen devastate lives and livelihoods, especially the most recent case in Kirinyaga County. Honorable Speaker, there are also many amendments that I see the committee, after public participation, did agree with. And Honorable Speaker, many of these, including that on the public holidays, which the committee did disagree with, I want to agree with the committee that indeed the question of keeping Utamaduni Day, and in fact following further engagements with the executive, we have in fact agreed with the committee that this Utamaduni Day should remain, but themed around the conservation of our environment. So we will be moving amendments together with the JLAC chair and the chair in charge of security to rename this holiday either around Utamaduni and Mazingira, or Mazingira and Utamaduni Day, so that it remains a public holiday when we or Kenyans can celebrate not just the diverse cultures, but also the culture amongst Kenyans and Africans of conserving the environment, Honorable Speaker, and therefore theme it around not just preservation of our diverse cultures, but also preservation of our environment. Therefore, I want to agree with the committee and many members who spoke against the amendment to remove the particular holiday. Honorable Speaker, there is also an amendment to Section 56(1) of the Universities Act 2012. Honorable Speaker, is good when we also have opportunity to debate some of these bills over a period of time, because since this debate began, Honorable Speaker, you will see only last week There were reports on issues touching on private universities and monies that had been given to them. A lot of money going to universities that I see the Public Investments Committee, one of the Public Investments Committee, the one led by Honorable Wamboka, calling for private universities to refund a total of 219 million as they kick off a probe that they are currently doing on the monies that have been disbursed over the years to our private universities. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I will indicate intention to drop the provisions that related to the placement in private universities of all students, not just government-sponsored students. Therefore, when we come to the third reading, Honorable Speaker, as the proposal of a bill, I would be seeking to drop some of these amendments relating to Section 56(1), at least to allow the Public Investments Committee to finish their probe and whatever other investigations that may come out of that process, so that we do not do anything that may jeopardize the work of another parliamentary committee or a parliamentary committee, or indeed interfere with the work of investigative agencies, should there be that need following the probe that the parliamentary committees are carrying out. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, allow me to thank all the members and Honorable Speaker, for those who had opportunity both last year and this year to contribute, those who expressed need to propose amendments, further amendments to this bill. We shall be inviting them in due course to propose amendments. And also Kenyans, if there is a Kenyan out there who feels that they may want an amendment to this particular bill, they are at liberty to approach any of their members of parliament, being the people's representatives, to come and represent them with such amendments when we get to third reading. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Thank you, Leader. Before we move on, we had, and I'm very happy you are following these contributions, and we had a particular item on the independence of the Office of the Attorney General. If you could be magnanimous to speak on it for 1 minute only.
Honorable Speaker, yes, I had the opportunity, I was listening in, Honorable Speaker, from the office. And it is indeed true that we must safeguard the independence of the Office of the Attorney General. And not just, Honorable Speaker, on operational matters, up to and including the hiring of staff in the Office of the Attorney General, Honorable Speaker. Remember, the Attorney General is a legal advisor to government. And even this House as an institution depends largely with the Attorney General, not just on legal advice, but also in the drafting of bills. And it's imperative that that office is safeguarded to ensure that they are independent and they're even able to recruit staff who match up to the skills that they need, whether it's in legislative drafting, whether it is in representation of government and the Attorney General in courts of law, Honorable Speaker. The Attorney General's office has become a training ground over the years, Honorable Speaker. And you know, we are equally guilty as an institution, the institution of Parliament, and indeed all other arms of government, including government ministries. They poach the very best of very well-trained staff over the years. They have poached from the Attorney General chambers and left the chamber with very few staff and inexperienced staff. And Honorable Speaker, it will be important that the Office of the Attorney General is then given the requisite support. And indeed, with the passage of this bill, Honorable Speaker, when the time comes, we will ensure that the Office of the Attorney General is safeguarded, its independence is secured, and including, as I said, its right to be able to procure staff who have the requisite skills, staff who are experienced, staff who will be able to offer value to the people of Kenya in court and out of court, Honorable Speaker, and including, as I say, to this House in legislative drafting, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Very well. We shall defer the putting of the question to a later date. Next order.
Order number 12, the National Disaster Risk Management Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2023, second reading.
A chairperson, departmental committee, or mover.
Honorable Speaker, on account of time, I would seek your indulgence to postpone this matter to a later time for moving to second reading.
Most obliged. Next order.
Order number 13, the Employment Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2022, second reading.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Labor.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, the bill was read a first time in the House on 17th August 2023, pursuant to the Standing Order 127, subsection 1. The bill was committed to the Departmental Committee on Labor for consideration and facilitation of public participation. The principal object of the bill is to provide for the right to disconnect in the digital age. This bill seeks to address increased employee burnout. Digital connectivity has also been noted to be slowly eroding leisure time for employees.
What's your point of order, Honorable Many?
Sorry, Chair. I request the member to...
Chair, you may just take your seat as we listen to the point of order.
Sorry, Chair, and I'll seek forgiveness in case I'm the one who missed. I don't know whether I didn't hear him reading the bill a second time, as is procedural.
Chair. Give him a bill.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Employment Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2022, be read a second time. Honorable Speaker, the bill was read a first time in the House on 17th August 2023, pursuant to the Standing Order 127, subsection 1. The bill was committed to the Departmental Committee on Labor for consideration and facilitation of public participation. The principal object of the bill is to provide for the right to disconnect in the digital age. The bill seeks to address increased employee burnout. Digital connectivity has also been noted to be slowly eroding leisure time for employees, hence affecting their work-life balance. This bill therefore seeks to strike a balance between work and private life to allow digital technology to have a positive effect on workers' quality of life, supported by employers. Honorable Speaker, the bill contains two clauses for consideration. Clause 1 of the bill provides for the short title. Clause 2 of the bill provides for the amendment by insertion of a new section 27A, provide for the right of the employee to disconnect and for a policy on the same. Number 5, the bill does not limit any fundamental rights and freedoms as provided under the Constitution. 6, under the 4th schedule of the Constitution, counties are mandated to implement the national labor standards and employment policy in the counties. Therefore, the bill concerns counties in terms of Article 110, 1A of the Constitution and standing orders. Honorable Speaker, in line with Article 118, 1B of the Constitution, and Standing Order 127, subsection 3, the National Assembly, in the local daily newspapers of 25th August 2023, inviting the public to make submissions on the bill. Further, the following stakeholders were requested to submit their views to the committee. 1, Office of Attorney General and Department of Justice. 2, State Department for Public Service. 3, State Department for Labor and Skills Development. 4, Public Service Commission. 5, Law Society of Kenya. 6, Kenya Law Reform Commission. 7, Central Organization of Trade Unions, Kenya, KOTU. 8, Katiba Institute. 9, Federation of Kenyan Employers, FKE. 10, Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA. Number 9, the following stakeholders submitted their memoranda to the committee. 1, State Department for Labor and Skills Development. 2, Public Service Commission. 3, Council of Governors. 4, Law Society of Kenya. 5, Kenya Law Reform Commission. 6, Federation of Kenya Employers, FKE. 7, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. 8, Kenya Private Sector Alliance. 9, Central Organization of Trade Unions. 10, the National Council of NGOs. Honorable Speaker, the committee, while considering the bill, made the following observations. That the proposed amendment is noble, as it will protect the right of employees as enshrined under Article 41 on the right to fair labor practice by ensuring an employer pays their employee equal remuneration for work of equal value as per Section 5, subsection 5 of the Employment Act number 11 of 2007. Article 43 also provides that all citizens have a right to the highest attainable standards of health and with the documented effects of lack of rest during non-work time such as stress, fatigue, and burnout. Interfering with the employee's health and well-being, this amendment would enhance the protection of this right. 2, the right to disconnect may be provided for through policy. However, the Constitution under Article 94 provides for the power of Parliament to make provisions having the force of law in Kenya, and therefore the enactment of law on the right to disconnect is rightfully before Parliament. 3, notwithstanding the term emergency should be clearly defined to prevent ambiguity. Further, it should be clear that an employee should first establish whether there is an emergency or not by answering the communication. 4, not all scenarios that could constitute an emergency having been defined. Some sectors require employees 24 hours a day, which has not also been defined. 5, the lack of clear parameters of application of the right to disconnect makes it difficult to enforce this right. It is therefore important to define other parameters besides emergency parameters, such as defining the term compensation, to create a means to easily enforce this right, as it is backed by the right to fair labor practice under Article 141, which includes working within defined working hours, and the right to privacy under Article 31, as is enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. To cure this mischief, the bill can provide for delegating legislative power to the relevant cabinet secretary to make regulations which will provide clarity on aspects such as nature of compensation, emergency, out of work hours, as provided for under international labor law, and to accommodate changing trends in the workplace, such as flexi working hours of contracts that require employees to work with people in different time zones. This would then provide a guideline to govern policies to be enacted by employers. 7, the need to redraft and insert 2007 after the Labor Relations Act to ensure correct quoting of the Labor Relations Act 2007 in Section 27A, subsection 8. Further, the one section in Section 27A, subsection 4, be deleted and substituted with the word subsection to prevent confusion with Section 10 of the Employment Act 2007. There is need, number 8, there is need for transition clause of 6 months to allow organizations to develop, engage internally on policy formulation and socializing the same to with employees. 9, Honorable Speaker, Section 27A, subsection 7, provides that where an employer contacts an employee during the period where there is no mutual agreed out of work hours, the employee shall not be obliged to respond and shall have the right to disconnect. The committee noted that this may be detrimental to the employer when faced with an emergency situation that needs urgent attention of the employee, since the employee did not answer the communication to be informed of the situation and ascertain if it is emergency or not. This ambiguity in such instances where an employee has not completed...
Order, Chair. Point of order is higher motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this time and for indulging me. Mr. Speaker, I know I shouldn't be raising this point of order at this time, but I know that there's a practice sometimes that when the committees move their report, then you find that they are not available in the House. Listening to the chair of the committee, it's not very clear whether he's moving a rejection or whether he's moving proposed amendments. I think even as he's going on, he needs to be very clear to inform us even as we'll be debating, because he may not be here to clarify when we'll be making our own contributions to the bill. It would be good for him to be clear. What is the committee? I know you might say it in the end, but because of the time, to be nice, what is to know what your thought track is at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Millie. I was a very keen and I'm a keen follower of that matter as he's moving, and I'm taking notes equally. You know my interest too. But I was hoping he'll bring that possibly at the conclusion. So let's give the chair more time. Proceed, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So I was at there is ambiguity in such instances where an employee has not completed set tasks for the day. The proposed amendment, section 27A, subsection 6, would give employees a blanket immunity, even where there are legitimate reasons for contacting them after working hours. Number 9, Honorable Speaker, employment is a civil relationship and should therefore not attract criminal liability by imposing fines. The offense created to ensure compliance with the amendment is punitive, and that it is unclear against whom it may be enforced against. An organization or corporation is a legal person and is in the same position in relation to criminal responsibility and liability as a natural person. 7, the right to disconnect should cover all categories of workers, and therefore section 27A, 10B, be amended by inserting employment contract and collective bargaining agreement after employment policy. To effect this, further, deployment of a policy to govern the right to disconnect should apply to all employers, not just those with 10 employees, 10 or more employees. Honorable Speaker, on the committee recommendations, the committee, having considered the bill and taken into account the views and recommendations of the public and relevant stakeholders, resolved to recommend that this House rejects the bill. And I think now this answers to what the Honorable wanted to seek.
I also think so. So now you may proceed again.
So 12, that the justification is that the bill does not consider the changing work environment and current work trends, where work is not measured in terms of hours of work, but as of output and achievement of employment target deliverables. 2, there is an existing government policy allowing for flexible work arrangements, such as remote work and flexible hours, that is flexi time. 3, the current move to source for online employment opportunities by the government will render this provision not progressive. 4, the issues raised by the bill may be best addressed by way of policy formulation. 5, matters of compensation for extra time worked have already been provided for both in the Employment Act and policy. And 6, the amendment does not provide for ways in which the employee may compensate the employer where the employee leaves for work early and does not meet targets. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, I would like to appreciate members of the Departmental Committee on Labor and Secretariat for the role played in the scrutiny of this bill. The committee is grateful.
Order, Chair. We may rise. The Chair, as we stop you at this particular time, you're still having 32 minutes to move this. And when you'll be doing so, I want to advise that you will get back just a little so that you may bring your recommendations clearly, like you have started, you had started, so that the members will be able to understand what the committee recommendations are. Honorable members, and the time being 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 28th February 2024 at 9:30 a.m.